Chapter 904. Please speak. This one is listening attentively. Speaking of which, that evil monarch is a rare genius that only appears once every 10,000 years in our Xian continent. He is truly a peerless genius. Furthermore, he is extremely scheming, shrewd, and valiant. Brother Lu opened his mouth wide and slapped the table ferociously. As he listened, Jun Moxie's face lit up with delight, and all the pores on his body felt comfortable. How comfortable, ah? Although what he said was the truth, it was still a little overboard, and his choice of words was also a little inappropriate. What did he mean by being shrewd? This young master is still in his youth, in the prime of his youth. How could he be old? Speaking of which, this evil monarch's most profound point is still his martial cultivation. Actually, he was already invincible in the world many years ago. But in order to nurture his own strength, he endured for another 500 years. A full 500 years, ah? Let's not talk about other things. Just this steadiness of the evil monarch is truly astonishing. Not flying for 1,000 years, soaring into the heavens with a single leap. Not crying for 1,000 years, shocking the world with a single cry. Finally, in his first battle, he managed to defeat the 3 holy lands. Wait a moment. Brother Lu, you just said that this evil monarch was already invincible in the world, but he lived in seclusion for 500 years? Jun Moxie's eyes widened. F***CK. When did this daddy live in seclusion for 500 years? Why didn't I know? Invincible in the world a long time ago. If I really had that ability, would I need to run away? This is the work of an expert. Unfathomable and unfathomable. This matter is definitely irrefutable, and there is no falsehood. I can use my life to guarantee it. The evil monarch is truly brilliant, and is definitely the #1 expert in the world. That Brother Lu raised his head and patted his chest, making a solemn vow. Jun Moxie's mouth twitched. Could it be that this person was not talking about that evil monarch of mine? It's someone else? Finally, he forced a smile and said with much difficulty, "Then please continue." Many people are saying that the evil monarch is that 3rd young master Jun Moxie of the Jun family in Tianxiang City. Ha! 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 Brother Lu issued a sonorous and forceful laughter as he expressed his disagreement with this news. This statement is simply absurd. Jun Moxie had wreaked havoc in the Tianxiang City in the past, and could be considered as a character. But if you compare this young master of the mortal world with the evil lord, then he is still lacking by several streets. That's not right. If it's just a difference of a few streets, it would still be blasphemy against the venerable evil lord. The difference between the two of them is simply like the difference between the heavens and the earth. There's no way to compare at all. There's no way to compare. After making such an evaluation, Brother Lu suddenly felt that he was still a bit too arrogant about Jun Moxie. He added, "Who does Jun Moxie think he is? He was just a young master with some talent. How could he compare to the evil lord's family? He wasn't even fit to carry her shoes." Comparing the two of them was simply the greatest insult to the evil monarch. I won't tolerate it no matter what. Jun Mo-Xie was left speechless, and black lines appeared on his forehead. This person was praising him, but was also scolding him at the same time. How should he deal with this? The evil monarch has the demeanor of a sage, is 3 zhang tall, has a broad waist, and is kind and amiable. His face is like a full moon, and he has sharp fangs. Brother Lu's saliva flew everywhere. Please enjoy your meal. This little brother suddenly feels some pain in his stomach. I need to go relieve myself. Jun Moxie clutched his stomach, feeling as though he was about to suffer internal injuries. This kind of situation was even scarier than going berserk. Even when this daddy faced all the experts of the 3 holy lands, I had never suffered any internal injuries before, But today, with just a few words from this fellow, I almost transmigrated back again. This is truly amazing, Casually throwing down a silver ingot, Jun Daxiao clutched his stomach and fled pathetically. He didn't even bother to eat and directly ran downstairs. This kind of information was simply too exciting. But that Brother Lu was still shouting from behind. Oi, young master, I'm not done yet. I know the inside story of this matter the best. There's also some exclusive information about the evil lord. You'll definitely be interested. Interested your granny's thigh? June Moxie cursed in his heart and disappeared with a whoosh. Only that Brother Lou was left holding the silver ingot on the table with a silly smile. I'm rich. It's actually such a big ingot of silver. Huh. June Dashao, who had heard some interesting information but did not fill his stomach, was naturally not satisfied. Immediately, he found another luxurious restaurant and walked up. But he discovered that this place was similar to the other one. Almost everyone was talking loudly, claiming to know many inside stories. This time, June Moxie had learned his lesson and did not continue to try to get more information. Instead, he randomly found a table and ordered some food and wine to eat heartily. Right now, the most important thing was to appease his stomach. Thus, he could only perk up his ears and listen quietly. Halfway through his meal, he suddenly heard the sound of the stairs. An old man walked up with a huqin in his hands. He played it twice before stopping and making a bow. In a hoarse voice, he said, "As the saying goes, rely on your parents at home, rely on your friends when you go out." This old man makes a living by telling stories. Since I've come here, I hope that everyone can support me with money. If you don't have money, please support me as well. Today, I'm talking about the evil monarch's thunderous rage, the 3 holy lands fall. Someone called out, "Old man, we already know about this matter, and we can recite it already. Why don't you change to something new?" Another person called out, "There's no harm in listening to it again. Every time I listen to it, my blood will boil even more. It's quite enjoyable. Hurry up and speak." That old man laughed proudly and said, "Everyone, you might not know this, but what this old man is talking about today is the absolute inside story of this matter. There are no omissions. Everyone, please be patient." As he said this, he played the huqin twice before he continued to speak. June Moxie's blood was boiling as he listened by the side. The story of this evil monarch, when told from the mouth of such a professional, was truly a soul-stirring story. The twists and turns were inconceivable, and the battles were thrilling and dangerous. As for the grudges and gratitude, it was even more unraveled bit by bit. As June Moxie listened, he couldn't help but fall into a daze. The evil monarch that this old man was talking about was truly a good man, a great man. To think that he was so transcendent, so heroic. He was truly an idol of the masses. This fellow seemed to be too engrossed in the story, and had clearly forgotten that he was the main character in the story. He was completely immersed in it. Actually, this really cannot be blamed on June Dashao. It was truly the things that the evil monarch had done, no matter which one it was, were all extremely foreign to June Moxie. It was as if he was listening to a completely unrelated story, but it was narrated with such passion. How could he not be engrossed in it? From start to end, only a few key words were used. The rest of the plot was not done by our June Dashao himself. Not only June Dashao, everyone present was also completely engrossed in the story. Right at this moment, when the evil monarch heard about this matter, he flew into a rage. With a wave of his hand, he punched a huge hole in the sky and roared, "The 3 holy lands have gone too far. I, the evil monarch, swear that I will not let this matter rest." Thus, he gave the order for all the experts under him to gather. Thus, 1 dragon, 2 phoenixes, 3 tigers for leopards, 5 bears, 6 lions, 7 wolves, 8 cranes, and 9 demon monarchs led the 36 heavenly dippers, 72 earthly fiends, 108 wolf smoke troops, and 365 supreme experts to gather in a single breath. They immediately set off, issuing a letter of challenge to the 3 holy lands. The situation was extremely tense, and it could erupt at any moment. The entire world was in a state of despair, and the sun and moon lost their light. After the 3 holy lands received the challenge, they were not to be outdone. Thus, they wrote a reply. "If you want to fight, we'll fight." Thus, both sides agreed that on the 3rd day of the 3rd month of the year XX, the victor would be decided in 33 battles. On the day of the decisive battle, wind and thunder rumbled, blood formed rivers, and corpses piled up like mountains. There was a poem that said, "The evil monarch's rage soared to the heavens. How could the three holy lands be willing? 33 battles shook the heavens and earth, and even now, the wind is still cold." Please listen to the next chapter. The sound of the huqin rang out. Then this old man took out a plate and walked in front of everyone, bowing and asking for the fee to tell the story. Everyone listened with rapt attention. Seeing that he actually stopped at such a critical juncture, everyone felt an unbearable itch in their hearts. They casually threw out a few copper coins and urged him, "Continue, you old fart. Why did you stop at a time like this? Hurry up and continue. Hurry up and tell us." That old man's face was full of smiles, and he kept nodding and bowing. Life is indeed difficult. Cough, cough. If it's difficult to refuse everyone's great kindness today, then this old man will make an exception and tell a little more. Before he finished, there was already a large ingot of silver on the plate. It was a full 10 taels. A burly man in embroidered robes raised his chin and said, "Hurry up and tell us. If it's a good story, this old man will reward you handsomely." That old man was overjoyed, and he thanked them profusely. After turning one round, he played the huqin and said, "The last time we talked about, Jun Dashao finally broke down completely, because the content of the story this time, which was also the absolute inside story, was that the evil monarch's lover had been forced to marry him. She had fled for thousands of miles, but her entire family had been captured. It was said that one of the big bosses of the three holy lands had fallen madly in love with the evil monarch's lover, and would not give up unless he could obtain her. Thus, the evil monarch had flown into a rage for the sake of the lover. So it was actually a love dispute. Jun Moxie could not help but recall the time when Chu Chihuan's name had risen to fame. According to the rumors of the pugilistic world, it was also the big boss of the three holy lands who had snatched Chu Chihuan's wife. That was why Chu Chihuan had taken such a cruel revenge and merciless assassination. F***CK, can't you change the plot? Besides, Wu Shangyun, that old fellow who had lived for over 3,000 years, just how many people's wives had he snatched over all these years? He should have long since given up on such thoughts, right? It's already been 3,000 years, and he's still enjoying it? Can that thing of his still stand up? After all, it's an old object from 3,000 years ago. It can even be sold as an antique. Chapter 905. On the way to Tianxiang City, Jun Moxie had actually heard 7 to 8 different versions of the story. Every single one of them was about how the beauty was as beautiful as jade, how the hero was courageous, and how he was enraged as he listened. He heard a completely different version of the story as he neared Tianxiang City. Jun Dashao could not help but curse angrily. The big boss of the three holy lands is too shameless. It's fine if he likes beautiful women, but he even wants to snatch a few dozen taels of silver. In the end, it caused such a shocking war. All in all, there was one thing in common between all these stories. This evil monarch was definitely not the Jun family's third young master, Jun Moxie. As long as someone said this, it would instantly attract a large group of people, and they would instantly be drowned in their spit. This was already considered light. If one's luck was a little bad, they would be surrounded and beaten up. Finally, they arrived at the southern gate of Tianxiang City. Suddenly, a wave of people appeared in front of them, instantly opening up a path. A group of soldiers, clad in bright armor, marched forward in an orderly manner. Walking out of the city gates, they lined up in the standard shape of a goose's wing. Then all sorts of flags were raised up, fluttering in the wind. In that instant, it felt as though the heavens and earth were shaking. Behind the troops, 2 groups of people came out from the crowd. A golden flag hung high in the air, with a golden dragon clawing at the wind, looking down on the world. It was actually the emperor's personal arrival. Everyone hid as far away as they could, watching from afar. Only Jun Moxie stood alone in the middle of the road, completely confused. He had no idea what was going on. 9 cannons sounded out, shaking the heavens. A luxurious dragon carriage slowly approached. Under the escort of hundreds of civil and military officials, the former prince equivalent, the current emperor of Tianxiang Empire, Yang Huainong, and the crown prince stepped down from the carriage. Their faces were full of smiles as they walked forward quickly. Long live! Everyone at the city gate immediately knelt down in an orderly manner. So this is to welcome me? Jun Moxie scratched his head. He was really not used to such a grand welcoming ceremony. Jun Moxie could only squeeze out a smile as he watched the emperor of the Tianxiang Empire warmly welcome him. If someone gave me a foot of respect, I would return the favor tenfold. Since the other party had already given me so much face, and even the ruler of a country had personally come out to welcome me, this unworthy, evil monarch should at least put on an act, right? Furthermore, his return was to build up support for this father and son pair who had just ascended to the throne. If news were to spread that the famous evil monarch had entered Tianxiang City with the Tianxiang Emperor personally welcoming him, it would definitely be a huge shock to the other countries. As long as the evil monarch did not fall, this level of intimidation would definitely last until the day Yang Huainong sat firmly on the throne. To the Tianxiang kingdom, which had just undergone a change in imperial authority, this was definitely a huge meat pie that had flown in from the heavens. If Yang Huainong did not know how to grasp this great opportunity, then he would not be fit to sit on the throne. After exchanging some pleasantries, everyone entered the city together. The city gates were not a suitable place to reminisce about old times. Jun Moxie could feel from the simple exchange just now that Yang Huainong and Crown Prince Yang Mo were truly grateful to him. After all, if not for Jun Moxie, they would definitely not be able to reach their current positions. How have you been these days? There shouldn't be anyone who dares to bully you now, right? Jun Moxie patted Yang Mo's head and asked with a smile. Little Yang Mo chuckled and blinked his eyes. Of course no one dares to bully me now. With big brother Mo, Xie, supporting me from behind, who would dare to touch a single strand of my hair, ah? Jun Moxie laughed heartily. At this time, Li Yuran took a step forward and asked with a faint smile. Third young master, the evil monarch that the entire world is talking about is you, this old man, right? Although it was a question, it was filled with certainty and even a hint of mockery. Oh, Jun Moxie looked at him with interest. Everyone in the world thinks that it's not me. Why are you so sure? Could it be that I really look like an old man? Li Yuran smiled lightly and said slowly, everyone in the world follows what others say. How could they ever truly understand you? Third young master? Only those who have truly interacted with you will understand how terrifying and unfathomable Jun Sunshao is. I believe that apart from you, no one else in the world would be as crazy as you. Am I really that crazy? Would I be crazier than the 9 serenities and 14 masters? Or would I be crazier than you? Jun Moxie raised his brows and looked at his former nemesis. He couldn't help but tease. Li Yuran smiled and shook his head. Then he indifferently said, my madness is completely different from third young master. Our goals are different to begin with. That makes sense. Jun Moxie nodded his head and asked, how is Fatty now? Tang Daxiao is the real deal now. Li Yuran's voice was filled with envy. This guy is now the uncrowned king of Tianxiang. Although he doesn't have much ambition, even His Majesty doesn't dare to offend him. He's living a happy life now. Li Yuran had a bitter taste in her mouth. She complained, but other things, this fatty wants to extort money from me every day. He said that I bullied him for more than 10 years, and now he wants to pay me back with interest. He said it so righteously. Third young master, don't you think that Fatty Tang's words are too heartless? Jun Moxie laughed loudly. How is it heartless? I can only say one word. Serve him right. Who asked you to instigate people to make things difficult for us? You caused Fatty to lose his wife once. Now that he wants revenge, it's only right and proper. Li Yuran smiled bitterly and said, he was supposed to go to the city gate to welcome you. But His Majesty personally told him to give this opportunity to the imperial family. So, Fatty Tang reluctantly agreed. But he still extorted a painting and 10 jugs of good wine from His Majesty. Jun Mo Xie was somewhat speechless. This fatty was truly daring. He was directly trying to extort money from the emperor, truly valiant. Pinching his nose, Jun Moxie went to the aristocratic hall with Li Yuran as he ate a huge lunch in the imperial palace. Old friends reminiscing, but little Yang Mo was not brought along. This little boy almost cried, but the impact of Jun Moxie's visit to the Tianxiang kingdom this time needed to be properly digested by the father and son. This was especially true for those old ministers who were still somewhat dissatisfied. It was more like a sharp sword was hanging on their necks, ready to fall at any time. As long as Jun Moxie clearly expressed his attitude, those who knew about Jun Moxie's methods would definitely not dare to act recklessly. At least not before Jun Daxiao's downfall. This would be of great help to the father and son in consolidating the imperial power. In fact, it could even be decisive. Therefore, these few days of Jun Moxie's arrival were also of great importance to the father and son. Jun Imo Xie had just arrived in front of the aristocratic hall's door when he saw a towering mountain of flesh from afar. The mountain of flesh was undulating with great waves. A fat and short neck was trying its best to straighten and look in his direction. Beside this figure, there was a slim and graceful figure accompanying it. There were also a few people hiding in the dark, closely watching this side. Jun Moxie could feel the respect of these two people towards him. He didn't need to see them to know that they were Hai Chanfeng and his old disciple, Song Shang. Suddenly seeing so many familiar faces, young Master Jun had an inexplicable feeling as if a lifetime had passed since he last saw them. His family hadn't left this place for a long time, but this feeling of familiarity had hit his heart with a burst of warmth. Tang Yuan suddenly let out a strange cry as he saw Jun Moxie walking towards him from afar. He took a step forward, and the fat on his body surged as he rushed towards Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie groaned and looked at him with a helpless expression. He patted his forehead and said, "Oh my God, Fatty, how come you've gotten fat again? I spent so much effort to make you slim down. You didn't even tell me to work harder, right? You shouldn't have rebounded to this extent. I'm really speechless." Tang Yuan's fat face was full of sincere emotions. He rushed over like the wind and directly pounced on Jun Moxie like a tiger and hugged him. He patted Jun Moxie's back as if he wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. His eyes turned red. Jun Imo Xie was hugged by his huge body, and he was like a bubble that was submerged in the sea. He struggled for a while before he finally broke free. He laughed and scolded. "I say, Fatty, it's rare for me to come back. Are you trying to suffocate me to death with your fat?" Tang Yuan smiled and rubbed his hands together. After a long time, he said, "Third young master, I've been very worried about you all this time, until I received the good news of your victory in the battle against the Holy Lands a few days ago. I drank the whole night. I'm so happy." Jun Moxie felt a burst of warmth in his heart. He patted his shoulder and said, "Fatty, you're very good." Tang Yuan chuckled and suddenly became lively. He danced in a circle and suddenly roared. "Inform the kitchen that I still want to drink wine today. I want to get drunk." "Wah!" Sun Xiao Mei stood on one side with a smile on her face. She looked at the two of them, using a very unconventional method to vent the joy of reuniting after such a long time. She felt a burst of sourness in her heart. The friendship between two men can be so sincere. It's so deep and reserved, but it's filled with an indescribable emotion that makes people want to cry. Chapter 906. Tang Yuan snorted and said, "I'm just asking around for information. Aren't you worried? I'm helping you. You're saying that I'm so unbearable. Be careful, or I'll report you to the third young master. You won't be able to bear the consequences." Another voice sounded, "Master, this disciple is willing to testify for Chinfeng. This fatty has been using a chicken feather as a command arrow all this time. He's been ordering us around no matter what. We've been suffering unspeakably. Although it's our duty to share Master's burdens, it's hard to explain in a few words." "Master?" Jun Daxiao stared blankly at this sudden form of address. He immediately remembered that Hai Chunfeng's old partner, Song Shang, was his disciple. Although it was only a master-disciple relationship based on the Tao of wine, and young Master Jun had never acknowledged it, This old disciple of his would always address him as master whenever he mentioned Jun and Moxie. This master reminded Jun Dashao of many past events. That rain, that wine, that bet, everything was in front of his eyes. It was an endless warmth. That was the weakest time in this world. Everyone burst into laughter. They walked in together amidst the laughter. Looking at Sun Xiaomei silently following behind, Jun Moxie suddenly had a whim. He asked maliciously, "Wow, Fatty, you've really grown up now? It's been so long, but your wife hasn't lost again?" Tang Yuan's fat face instantly turned into a bitter gourd. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. Third young master. You can't play with me like this. Are you trying to kill me? I've only stopped for a few days. Ouch, it's so painful. It was Sun Xiaomei who fiercely pinched his waist. She said angrily, "Fatty, you're really something. Just you wait." Then she snorted and walked away. Tang Yuan didn't know what to do. He chased after her and begged, "Honey, I really won't. How could I? I. You have to believe me." Looking at Fatty nodding and bowing, with tears and snot running down his face as he followed behind Sun Xiaomei, apologizing profusely like a kowtowing bug. Everyone laughed gloatingly. Jun Moxie had only stayed in Tianxiang City for 2 days when he received news about the Misty Mansion. Because in the past 2 days, Jun Moxie had been annoyed by Tang Yuan to the point that he almost called him uncle. It could be said that he had personally experienced Tang Yuan and Song Yuan's pain. Who knew where this fellow had gotten his hands on so many different versions of the story? Every day, he would carry a thick stack of them and come over to tell Jun Moxie stories. And the stories were always about the battle between the evil monarch and the 3 holy lands. In a short span of 2 days, Tang Yuan had actually bought over 60 different versions of the story at a high price. He had even compiled them into books and dragged Jun Moxie to read them every day. In the end, whenever Jun Moxie saw Tang Yuan excitedly rushing over with a book in his hands, he would immediately feel a headache coming on and was just short of shouting for help. The moment he received the news from Misty Illusory Manor's Chao Guofeng, Jun and Moxie had practically fled in a flustered manner. It could even be said that he'd pissed his pants as he escaped from Tianxiang City. In the current world, the only person who could scare the evil monarch, Jun Moxie, and Jun Dashao to this extent was Fatty Tang alone. This achievement of Master Tang Yuan, Tang Dashao, was not only unprecedented, it was also unparalleled. However, in these 2 days, Jun Moxie had also given Tang Yuan, Sun Xiaomei, Hai Chun Feng, Song Shang, and the rest a portion of pills to raise their strength. Tang Yuan had no interest in Xianqi at all. With his current low cultivation, he had not even reached the Golden Xian realm. Although he had no use for it, Jun Moxie still left an extra portion for Sun Xiaomei. In case Fatty had a sudden urge to cultivate, these pills would be his greatest motivation, giving pills to Fatty, Song Shang, Hai Chun Feng, and the rest. This was the main reason why Jun Moxie had come here. Furthermore, Jun Moxie had also left a large amount of bone-tempering pills for Fatty to earn money for. Although he hoped that this fellow would also eat one to consolidate his foundation, Jun Moxie could tell from Fatty's greedy expression that this fellow would rather exchange all of it for silver than eat it himself. Jun Moxie decided that if one day he managed to concoct a marrow-tempering pill without any side effects, he would definitely force it down this Fatty's throat at the first moment. Otherwise, if Fatty were to pass away in a few short decades, how boring would this world be without Fatty? After he left, Tang Yuan gave an order. Buy all the books related to the evil monarch. Different editions could be bought at a high price. Even if it was a ready-made version, there would be no problem. After that, compile them and bring them to the study room, because Fatty felt that these stories were the funniest jokes he'd ever seen in his life. No matter which version it was, they were all so pleasing to the eye that he could not stop laughing. The only regret was that no matter how he looked at it, the main character of the story did not seem to be his best friend, Jun Moxie, Jun Dashao. That guy was too tall and strong, right? How could that brat be so good? With the support of a peerless rich man like Tang Yuan, all sorts of strange stories related to the evil monarch sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain, spreading endlessly throughout the entire continent. This purchase operation this time directly led to all sorts of arguments about the legendary evil monarch in the future, with all sorts of arguments and endless arguments. This added an even more mysterious and fantastical flavor to the legendary life of the evil monarch. Of course, as to how much of this was done by the real evil monarch, Junda Shao, was more of a matter of opinion. In front of them was a dense forest. Holy Emperor Chao Guofeng walked in front with a solemn face. Ever since they left Chrysanthemum City, his face had been solemn, and his mood was clearly very heavy. The other 6 also knew that he was not in a good mood, so they did not come to talk to him. The 7 of them had already been silent for a few days. Their goal this time was to find someone. They had already searched this mountain many times, and there was not a single blind spot. They had clearly heard that the person was staying here, but the 7 of them had searched the entire mountain range many times, but they still could not find anything. This trip could be said to be not going smoothly at all. Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng, the 2 leaders, were extremely gloomy. The only good news recently was that the 3 Holy Lands had been defeated by an evil monarch who had appeared out of nowhere. They had suffered a huge loss, and almost their entire army had been wiped out. Only then did these few feel good for once. They discussed for a long time, gloating over the misfortune of others, and then returned to a gloomy mood, looking at the exceptionally silent and desolate forest before them, and finally confirming that the person they were looking for was definitely not here. Chao Guofeng finally decided to give up. Saint Emperor Chao slapped a large tree next to him gloomily and said in annoyance, "I'm really unlucky to come out this time. We couldn't find the person, and even fell out with the Holy Lands. Those bunch of trash." The most infuriating thing is that the free and natural physique disciple that we finally found with so much difficulty actually disappeared without a trace, just like that. Bai Chi Feng let out a long sigh and said sympathetically, "A youth with the free and natural physique. Who knows how many tens of thousands of years it would take for one to appear. Just like that, what a pity. What a pity, ya." The others shook their heads and sighed at the same time. The moment this matter was brought up, they were filled with hatred towards the 3 Holy Lands. If not for Zhang Mubai's interference, how could such a rare talent disappear for no reason? But it was useless to say anything now. Even if they wanted to find Zhang Mubai to settle the score, they couldn't do it now, because that Holy Emperor Zhang had already died tragically in the hands of the evil monarch, and his spirit had been destroyed, consigned to eternal damnation. This made Chao Guofeng unable to find a place to vent even if he wanted to. He was completely depressed to the max. Looks like the information this time was wrong. The person we're looking for is not here at all. Chao Guofeng laughed bitterly and said listlessly, "This time, not only did we not find the person, the matter of helping the 3 Holy Lands to deal with the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters has also been completely messed up. It's as if we did not complete a single thing that Palace Lord had instructed us to do. The 7 of us are really unlucky." Bai Chi Feng said indifferently, "This trip was futile because the information was wrong. How can we be blamed? Besides, what kind of people are those from the 3 Holy Lands? How can we cooperate with them? We're already being magnanimous by not crushing them to death one by one. Big brother, you don't have to be too concerned. I believe that if it was anyone else from the Misty Mansion, they would not let the matter rest so easily. It's already very rare for Big Brother to be able to control the situation to the point where you can advance and retreat as you wish. But no matter what the reason is, the result is that we did not do a single thing that should have been done." Chao Guofeng said seriously, "There's always a reason for any failure. But this kind of reason is not the reason why we can't do anything. Responsibility is responsibility. What should be shouldered must be shouldered." "I understand." Bai Chi Feng raised his head and looked at him. "Don't worry. The 6 of us are willing to shoulder this responsibility together with Big Brother." "That's not right. Since I'm the leader of this trip, how can I let you guys shoulder the responsibility for me?" Chao Guofeng said unhappily. Then he sighed and said, "Actually, I've been frowning these few days because I'm thinking about something else." "What is it?" The evil monarch is most likely that Jun family's third young master Junmoxi. I believe that no one will have any more doubts about this matter. But the sudden rise of Junmoxi this time, and the powerful forces he has made me feel that it's enough to affect the Misty Mansion. Chapter 907. Although our Misty Mansion has many experts, most of them are already a few years old. Compared to a monstrous genius like Junmoxi, who has absolute speed of improvement, there's no way we can win against him. Junmoxi is not even 20 years old yet, and he has already killed Jianmu Bai in a one-on-one duel without suffering any injuries. He even has the means to kill over 20 experts from the Holy Lands while fighting against the Holy Emperor. What kind of strength is this? What kind of potential? This old man is almost certain that the time he reaches the pinnacle of this world will not be more than 30 years old. At that time, even if it's our Misty Mansion, what can we rely on to defend against Junmoxi? Chao Guofeng sighed heavily. It's fine if Junmoxi is not interested in Misty Mansion, but if he really has designs on our Misty Mansion, then the consequences will be unimaginable. Then Big Brother means to get rid of Junmoxi now, once and for all, eliminate all future troubles? Bai Qifeng frowned. Bai Qifeng furrowed his brows and asked slowly. Not exactly. That kind of thing, the people from the three holy lands may be able to do it with a clear conscience, but us people from Misty Mansion cannot do it. We don't dare to do it. You must remember, if you kill someone just because you are jealous of his speed, then there's no doubt that a subconscious thought of, I'm not as good as him, will be born in your heart. This is the biggest taboo in cultivation. Even if we use all our means to kill him, he will become an inner demon, living in the depths of your heart forever. From then on, you will never be able to advance an inch in your life. Chao Guofeng's eyes were filled with worry. If there was no Junmoxi, our Misty Mansion would not need to be so anxious. But now that we have him, we must find a successor with outstanding talent. This matter is extremely urgent and must be carried out, because we have to ensure that after a few years, there will still be one person who can support the entire Misty Mansion. Realization dawned on Bai Qifeng's face, but his expression turned into one of rage as he gritted his teeth and said, We've already found such an ideal successor, but it's a pity that the three holy lands ruined it completely. Those bastards. I can't wait to eat them alive. Another person said cautiously, If that's the case, if one day our Misty Mansion is destroyed by Junmoxi, wouldn't it be the result of the three holy lands? That's right. Bai Qifeng's eyes were overflowing with killing intent as he said heavily, That's why I said, we can't let them off too easily. As he spoke, he looked south. That direction was the direction of the three holy lands. Now that things have come to this, it's useless to talk about this. It's meaningless. The most important thing now is where can we find a successor who can compete with Junmoxi. Otherwise, the 10,000 years old Misty Mansion really doesn't have much time left. Chao Guofeng furrowed his brows and let out a long sigh. The other 6 people had also thought this through and also let out long sighs at their wits' end. Just at this time, a burst of eerie laughter suddenly rang out, and that voice was clearly not far from them. Everyone looked at each other in shock. A sharp light shone in Chao Guofeng's eyes as he asked in a low voice, Which expert dares to play tricks in front of us? Please come out and meet us. The faces of Bai Qifeng and the rest turned heavy. But from the laughter, they could tell that this person's strength was definitely not below theirs, and might even be stronger. If this person was really an enemy, then he must be an extremely terrifying enemy. They did not speak, all in a state of full concentration, ready to attack at any time. After a long time, the eerie voice slowly said, Aren't you all looking for a successor with good potential? This old man sees that you've been searching too hard and pitted your old age with not much time left, so I've specially sent one to you. This old man is a good person, right? This person's voice was ethereal, sometimes in front, sometimes behind, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right, and sometimes as if it was spinning in the air. Even with the 7 great holy emperors of the Misty Mansion, with their extraordinary strength, They actually could not tell which direction this person was hiding in, not to mention his exact location. As soon as that person finished speaking, the expressions of the 7 people changed at the same time. This person could actually clearly hear the contents of their conversation just now, and they could not do anything to him at all. Didn't this mean that this person's strength was far above the 6 of them? And this person's tone was not polite at all. Obviously, he was not a friend. How could such a strong enemy appear in such a desolate place? Amidst the silence, a scream suddenly rang out. This scream sounded extremely young, and from the looks of it, it didn't seem to be more than 20 years old. Following that, the sinister voice laughed loudly. Come and welcome your disciple. Free and natural physique, how rare. A faint white shadow seemed to have been thrown high by someone. It rolled twice in the air and spat out a bright arrow of blood. It streaked across the sky and then landed on the ground with a bang. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. I'm leaving, huh? The sinister voice seemed to have come from underground this time. Then it disappeared without a trace, and there was no more sound. Let's go. Bai Qifeng roared and took the lead. Qifeng, be careful, it's a trap. Chao Guofeng roared and suddenly leaped up, soaring tens of zhang into the air. Then he stood with his sword in hand, looking around warily. From his position, no matter what happened, he would be able to help his brothers at the first moment, and use the high ground to deal a fatal blow to the enemy. This was a tacit understanding that the 7 of them had developed after fighting together for a long time. There was no need to say anything. When facing an enemy, they would naturally be able to form the best formation in an instant, each occupying the most advantageous position and the position that could protect their comrades the most. Chao Guofeng was on full alert in the air when he suddenly heard Bai Qifeng's anxious voice. Big brother, quickly come and see. It's really that free and natural physique child. Quickly come. Chao Guofeng, who was in the air, instantly trembled when he heard this. His body spun around in the air like a shooting star, and with a swoosh, he landed at the place where Bai Qifeng's voice had come from. With one look, he could not help but be enraged. There was a person lying on the ground in front of him. That person's entire body was dyed red with blood, and his flesh was torn and lacerated. He was unconscious, and right now, he was only exhaling and not breathing in from the looks of it. This person had been struck heavily by the person who had spoken earlier and then thrown down from the sky. It was already not easy for him to be able to retain his last breath. Chao Guofeng walked closer to take a look, and after taking his pulse, he could not help but curse angrily. The meridians of this youth in front of him were almost completely destroyed. He was practically a complete cripple from head to toe. This youth had a handsome face, and his eyebrows were furrowed in a pained manner. His eyes were tightly shut, but who else could it be if not that free and natural physique prodigy? Who would have thought that he had been kidnapped in Chrysanthemum City, and now that he was sent back, he was in such a pitiful state on the verge of death? In that instant, Chao Guofeng felt a throbbing pain in his heart, and his usually steady hands trembled slightly. Barely controlling his emotions, he closed his eyes and asked, "Can he be saved?" With Chao Guofeng's strength and eyesight, he actually asked this question. From this, it could be seen how much he cared about this free and natural physique youth. Bai Qifeng sighed and said, "I'm afraid it will be difficult." Actually, it was not only Chao Guofeng who was sad. Bai Qifeng's sadness was not any less than Chao Guofeng's. Chao Guofeng's body shook, and his back collapsed. In that instant, he seemed to have aged a few years, but it's not that there is no way at all. Bai Qifeng hesitated. It's just that it depends if it's worth it. What way? Chao Guofeng turned around abruptly. His eyes shone as he looked at Bai Qifeng. The 7 of us will take turns to use our Xianqi to protect his heart and meridians, and then rush back to the Misty Mansion. If he can hold on until we reach the Misty Mansion, with the powerful effect of the 7-colored holy fruit, there might be a glimmer of hope. At the very least, we can still ask for help from the few old ancestors. But if he can't hold on until then, there's nothing else we can do. Bai Qifeng said. But looking at his current condition, to hold on until then. It's difficult, really very difficult. No matter what, this is our last hope. Chao Guofeng said decisively. Let's do this now. We'll rush back to the Misty Mansion immediately. This brat's genius physique is directly related to the future of our Misty Mansion. We must not lose him. Let me be the first to extend his life. As he spoke, Chao Guofeng stretched out his hands and shouted in a low voice. Profound energy surged out ceaselessly, and with a sound, a shapeless bed that was completely condensed from the material substance of profound energy suddenly appeared before him. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and the body of the youth on the ground flew up without a sound and landed on the chi bed. There was not the slightest movement on his body, and it was as comfortable as falling into the clouds. Chao Guofeng's hands were filled with dense xian qi as they brushed past his body. Wherever his palms went, Chao Guofeng's body would collapse. Everywhere his palms touched, the wounds on the youth's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, shrinking and forming scabs. The wounds that were still bleeding just a moment ago actually healed by half in an instant. Rejuvenation technique. Big brother, you're crazy. Bai Qifeng was shocked. Don't tell me you don't want your life anymore. Rejuvenation technique, as the name suggested, was an extremely unique healing technique. It used the user's own life force to transform into healing energy, causing the injuries of the injured to improve. No matter how serious the injuries of the injured were, as long as this technique was used, they would definitely recover. But in the Misty Mansion, this secret technique was a forbidden technique. I've been writing for an entire day and night today. I've finally written to the 5th chapter. 3 chapters as compensation, 2 chapters as a normal update. AI, how good would it be if I didn't owe anything? This is going to be a huge explosion. Ha, what a joke. I don't know how much I owe, but I'll continue to compensate. When I'm done, I'll ask for monthly votes. If the brothers and sisters can stay for me, that's the best. I'll be extremely grateful. If they can't, I won't force it either. Chapter 908. There was no other reason. Once the rejuvenation technique was used, regardless of whether the injured person could be saved or not, the user would definitely consume a lot of their lifespan and might even die on the spot due to the exhaustion of their lifespan. Chao Guofeng smiled and said, "This old man has already lived for more than 1,000 years, but I still haven't lived enough. However, I definitely cannot watch such a peerless genius be destroyed in front of me. The 3 holy lands can be jealous of talent and kill to prevent trouble before it happens, but this old man will never do such a thing. Those who desire to live are not necessarily afraid of death." After saying that, he grabbed the wrist of the youth in his arms and sent his extremely pure xian qi into the youth without any reservation. This youth with the free and natural physique was naturally Jun Moxie, Jun Daxiao. At this moment, Jun Daxiao's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Chao Guofeng's wholehearted care made Jun Moxie feel very guilty, because Chao Guofeng was so sincere about his life and death, but he was using this to deceive him. Although Chao Guofeng's ultimate goal was still the Misty Mansion, Jun Moxie still felt that his actions were a little despicable. At the same time that Chao Guofeng used the rejuvenation technique, Jun Moxie clearly felt that Chao Guofeng's own life force was rapidly flowing away. He sighed in his heart and secretly reversed the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, using a strange method to return the life force that Chao Guofeng had sent out. This way, he first forced the life force into the air, and then used the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to wrap it up and seep it into Chao Guofeng's body. Although the speed was a little slower and couldn't compare to Chao Guofeng's output speed, it was safer and wouldn't be discovered. Moreover, the life force that had been processed by the art of unlocking heaven's fortune would be even more tenacious. Therefore, Chao Guofeng, who had used the forbidden technique without any regard for anything, had instead obtained benefits, and his lifespan had increased by a considerable amount. Jun Moxie also felt a little more at ease in his heart. At least this way, I've more or less compensated you. At least I won't let you lose everything. As for whether we'll be enemies or friends in the future, we'll talk about it in the future. I'll just try my best not to harm you. Jun Moxie closed his eyes and said in his heart, for the sake of Duga Xiaoyi and Guanqing Han, I had no choice. Because if I asked for it directly, you definitely wouldn't give it to me. What I need is definitely not a small amount. Please let me be selfish for once. I'm sorry. Jun Xie had always been a self-centered person. He had done countless selfish things. But only this time, when Chao Guofeng used his own life force to prolong his own life without any hesitation, Jun Xie felt shaken from the bottom of his heart. If he had killed Chao Guofeng in a face-to-face battle, Jun Moxie would not have felt the slightest bit of guilt. Even if Chao Guofeng was a saint, he would not take another step back. If he was really seriously injured, it would be excusable, but now he was not injured at all. A person's conscience is really a wonderful thing. To think that a cold-blooded person like me would also have such complicated emotions. Jun Moxie laughed bitterly in his heart. Seeing Chao Guofeng continuously releasing his Xian Qi, Bai Qifeng couldn't help but furrow his brows. Big brother, I'm afraid we still need to consider this matter. This ideal successor with a free and natural physique is indeed hard to come by. But now that he's in such a state, is it really worth it for us to take such a huge risk for him? Since the enemy made him half dead and sent him here, it's not like they don't have any ulterior motives. Not to mention anything else. If this kid's consciousness was already destroyed by that person just now, even if his body is saved by the treasure of our sect, his mind might not be saved. If we save a fool, so what if he has the free and natural physique? This is something we can't afford to not guard against. Jun Daxiao, who was pretending to be heavily injured, cursed in his heart. Bastard, you're the fool. Your whole family are fools. When this young master unleashes his skills, I'll definitely turn you into a fool. How dare you slander this young master of yours? Chao Guofeng smiled faintly and shook his head, not saying a word. Big brother, putting aside what you said just now, just the fact that we've expended a large amount of Xian Qi to prolong this kid's life, if the enemy sets up another ambush along the way, not only will this kid lose his life, even the 7 of us brothers may also die along the way. Isn't this gamble a little too big? Bai Qifeng saw that he couldn't persuade him and became even more anxious. There were too many suspicious points in this sudden incident, and Bai Qifeng didn't have time to think too much. Think about it. The free and natural physique was extremely rare. How rare was it? But the enemy could bear to make him look like this and send him back. If they didn't have some ulterior motive, why would it be like this? If this was a trap, then the consequences would be unthinkable. You're absolutely right. Chao Guofeng finally opened his mouth. Everything in front of us is obviously a trap. This old man has already thought it through just now. But this trap is one that we have no choice but to jump into. Even if we know that there's only a slim chance of survival after jumping in, we still have to jump in. He smiled faintly and said, the Misty Mansion has been built for thousands of years, and there have been many talented cultivators. But a person with such a free and natural physique has never been seen before. This restriction has greatly limited the development of our Misty Mansion, especially now that the evil monarch, Jun Moxie, has appeared by chance in the outside world. Qifeng, our generation may still have great ambitions, but we can't hide the fact that we're getting old. What hope do we have? But the Misty Mansion must still exist, and it must exist for all eternity. When Chao Guofeng said this, Bai Qifeng originally wanted to persuade him further, but he didn't say anything in the end. He only sighed and lowered his head. And this youth in front of us is where the future hope of our Misty Mansion lies. The terrifying potential of the free and natural physique is unparalleled, and I believe that this youth must have had some fortuitous encounter in the past to be able to maintain the free and natural physique that would have disappeared if he didn't meet a master in his youth. And he even laid down an extremely solid foundation for his Xian Qi. What does all this mean? You and I both know it in our hearts. The future development of this youth with great fortune is definitely limitless. He might not even be inferior to that Jun Moxie. Chao Guofeng increased the speed of his Xian Qi flow and raised his head. Right now, we're facing both internal and external troubles. Since we've obtained such a great fortuitous encounter, how can we give it up so easily? Even if all 7 of us die here, we can't give up. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, we must send this youth with a free and natural physique safely back to the Misty Mansion. We cannot take this risk this time. If we give up on this youth for the sake of our own safety, then in the future, if the Misty Mansion meets with misfortune and is destroyed, then everything will be because of us. We are the sinners that caused the destruction of the Misty Mansion. Chao Guofeng said heavily. Big Brother is wise and has deep foresight. What you said is very true. Just now, it was indeed this little brother's mistake. A trace of guilt flashed across Bai Qifeng's face. The Misty Mansion can be said to be my debt of gratitude as heavy as a mountain. Since we've already come to this point, then even if I have to risk this life of mine, I, Bai Qifeng, will send this kid back safely. The other 5 all had solemn expressions as they nodded solemnly, their expressions filled with determination. Chao Guofeng smiled gratifyingly and said, "Since that's the case, then let's hurry up. This old man's cultivation is rather high. So for this first part of the journey, let this old man protect him until I run out of energy. After that, the rest of you follow this old man's instructions. We must not let him be shaken in the slightest to avoid any accidents." As he spoke, Bai Qifeng nodded and rushed in front of Chao Guofeng, saying, "I'll lead the way." Then he took the lead and dashed out. Chao Guofeng carried Jun Dashao's heavily injured body and followed closely behind Bai Qifeng. The other 5 surrounded Chao Guofeng tightly. The 7 of them seemed to have formed a tight circular formation, charging out at high speed. The 7 figures moved like lightning. Although they were in the dense forest, they did not make the slightest sound. Clearly, these experts of the Holy Emperor's level were all true experts. But at this moment, these 7 experts were all as if they were facing a great enemy. All of them spread out their divine sense in all directions, covering the surrounding tens of li. Along the way, they were about to leave the mountain ridge, but there was no movement from the terrifying enemy they had expected. There must be something wrong if something was wrong. These 7 were all experienced and astute people. Not only did they not let down their guard, they even raised their guard. Since the enemy had set up such an open trap, how could they let us escape so easily? The 7 of them all had the same thought in their minds. After walking for a while, Chao Guofeng suddenly felt the abnormality in his body. Although his Xian Qi was indeed the strongest among them, he had just used a rejuvenation technique that expended a lot of his lifespan. Logically speaking, his body should be far weaker than usual. But right now, there was nothing wrong with his body. And even after using his Xian Qi on such a large scale, he did not show any signs of exhaustion. In fact, his mind seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. This kind of strange phenomenon was definitely different from the usual final radiance of the setting sun. Chao Guofeng was overjoyed. Could it be that his great luck today, expending a lot of his lifespan and using a secret technique, was still able to bring himself to his peak condition? How strange. Chapter 909. The mountain pass was right in front of them. It was a long and narrow gorge, and the sunlight could not shine in, forming a long shadow. From afar, it looked like a cold, venomous snake quietly crawling on the ground. Bai Qifeng waved his hand, and the 7 of them stopped in their tracks. His sharp eyes looked ahead cautiously. If the enemy has set up an ambush in this mountain range, this is the last and most dangerous place, and the most suitable place for an ambush. Everyone, prepare yourselves. The battle may be right in front of us. The other 5 answer at the same time. Looking at the long gorge in front of them, they couldn't help but place their hands on the hilts of their swords. All of them felt a chill in their palms, and cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. Every single one of them had been fighting on the edge of life and death for close to 1,000 years. They were old, wily old foxes that couldn't be any older. Even if they were stabbed by a sword and faced with a life and death situation, they might not even furrow their brows. But facing this ordinary-looking gorge, all of them felt a chill in their hearts. But the chill in their hearts was not for themselves, but for the heavy responsibility they were carrying on their shoulders. The future of the Misty Mansion was in Chao Guofeng's arms. That was a plan that could not fail. The only thing they knew now was that the enemy was a mysterious and extremely powerful enemy. That person was hiding in the dark, ready to deal a fatal blow at any time. As for the background of this person, why was he targeting the Misty Mansion? Which faction did he belong to? How strong was the force behind him? They knew nothing about any of these. And it was because of this layer of mystery that increased the pressure on the 7 of them. The 7 of them carefully used their powerful divine sense to scan the gorge and the mountains on both sides. But they didn't discover anything. But because they didn't discover anything, they became even more nervous. The fear of the unknown was an innate trait of humans. Even the experts of the Holy Emperor were no exception, completely not discovering anything. There could only be 2 possibilities. First, there was no one there. Second, the strength of the enemy far surpassed them. But the enemy had laid out such a strict and cruel plan. How could they not have a backup plan? The 7 holy emperors of Misty Mansion would never believe that there was no one there. The 2 sides of the canyon were only 4 to 5 feet wide at most, but the rocks on both sides were extremely steep, as if they had been cut down by a knife. The most peculiar thing about this canyon was that the top was actually connected like a huge tunnel. Bai Qifeng furrowed his brows and looked for a while. I'll go and scout the path first. If there's anything wrong, just take a detour and ignore me. This place is really strange and dangerous. Chao Guofeng raised his head and looked at Bai Qifeng, his eyes filled with intense emotions. Qifeng, you must be careful. If you find anything wrong, retreat immediately. Don't take the risk. The eyes of the other 5 were also filled with intense worry. If it was in the past, the 7 brothers would rather live and die together and charge in together. But he couldn't now, even if he knew that Bai Qifeng's chances of survival were slim. But this act of scouting was necessary. Even if Bai Qifeng didn't go, the others had to go. It was only a matter of who to choose. Bai Qifeng nodded deeply. His figure flashed, and he charged forward at high speed. The 6 people behind him all stared at his back, their eyes filled with nervousness. Bai Qifeng had already reached the canyon in the blink of an eye. His white robes fluttered in the wind as he turned his neck slightly, as if he wanted to turn back to look at his brothers. But in the end, he didn't. After a short pause, he increased his speed again. With a flash of white, he disappeared into the canyon. In the instant that Bai Qifeng's body disappeared into the canyon, everyone's hearts were in their throats. They had a vague feeling that they would never be able to see him again. In just a short moment, a white shadow flashed, and Bai Qifeng floated out. His face was full of surprise. There's actually no ambush here. There's no setup at all. This is really strange. Everyone relaxed. Chao Guofeng let out a sigh and scolded jokingly. Are you very disappointed that there's no ambush? What a wretched wretch. Bai Qifeng chuckled. Big brother, you don't say. This is the best place for an ambush, but there's actually no ambush. Once we pass this place, it's like a fish swimming in the ocean, a bird flying in the sky. Going forward, it's a flat plain. To kill the Holy Emperor's experts on a plain plain. Isn't this nonsense? That's why I said I can't figure it out. Chao Guofeng snorted. Don't think about things you can't figure out. Since there's no ambush, then let's hurry through. If we can return to the Misty Mansion safely, wouldn't that be a happy thing for everyone? The 6 of them agreed. The uneasiness in their hearts was swept clean, and they rushed in excitedly. Although the distance between the 2 sides of the canyon was very short, the canyon was very long. When the 7 people saw the light on the other side, Chao Guofeng suddenly felt something. For a moment, his hair stood on end, and he suddenly shouted, "Stop!" This shout was like a sudden clap of thunder, resounding through the clouds. Especially in this almost sealed state of the gorge, it made the other 6 people's ears roar like thunder. The other 6 people were shocked and stopped in their tracks. They looked at the small exit that was the size of a wash basin, glowing brightly. Their cultivation levels were all lower than Chao Guofeng's, but they did not notice anything strange. They could not help but turn a look at Chao Guofeng, their eyes filled with shock. Chao Guofeng's sharp eyes seemed to be able to see all the way outside, shining brightly in the darkness. He said in a low voice, "Honest people don't do underhanded things. Since you're already here and have the intention to make things difficult, do you still need to hide your head and show your tail? You might as well just come out." The moment these words came out, the other 6 people's hearts instantly sank. The darkness before dawn was indeed the hardest to endure, knowing that one more step would lead to an endless path, but they just had to be caught in this darkest moment. At this moment, they were at the end of the canyon. On both sides were wide mountain walls, and there was no possibility of breaking through them. At this delicate moment, if they were blocked by the enemy in front and behind, they would really have no way out. The consequences were really unimaginable. At this moment, a long shout suddenly sounded from outside, and an elegant voice said, "As expected of Holy Emperor Chao Guofeng, you're really powerful. We thought that our hands and feet were quite clean, but we didn't expect Holy Emperor Chao to be able to detect our traces from such a far distance. You really live up to your reputation." As the clear and melodious laughter rang out, a dozen or so black shadows silently appeared at the other side of the cave's exit, perfectly blocking the exit. The 7 holy emperors of Misty Mansion were greatly surprised and even a little confused. They subconsciously looked back. That person slowly smiled and said, "You guys shouldn't look back because the entrance you came from has already been blocked. This time, we dispatched a total of nearly 100 masters to plan this ambush. Chao Guofeng, 7 holy emperors of Misty Mansion. Today is the day you die." A dark canyon like this cave is really a very suitable place to be your burial ground. Chao Guofeng understood that at this moment, it could be said that they had fallen into a desperate situation that they had never encountered before. But he still did not give up on transferring Xian Qi, and just calmly asked, "Who are you guys? Since we're already at death's door, why don't you show your true face, my friend? Let's die knowing. If we really die in the hands of an old acquaintance, we 7 brothers will not feel wronged." It turned out that the people at the cave entrance were all dressed in black robes, and their faces were still covered with black masks, only revealing a pair of shining eyes. Hearing Chao Guofeng's question, the leader laughed loudly and said, "A centipede dies, but it doesn't fall down. Holy Emperor Chao, we already know the strength of you 7 brothers. Now, although we have an absolute advantage in terms of terrain and manpower, we only have a 90% chance of keeping all of you here." He laughed sinisterly and said, 90%, although it's already very high, it's still not 100%. Just in case, we won't reveal our identities before you die." He looked at Chao Guofeng and said viciously, "Of course, I definitely won't let a famous person like Holy Emperor Chao become a muddle-headed ghost. So, when Holy Emperor Chao really can't move and has only one breath left, I will fulfill this wish of Chao Holy Emperor Chao." This person laughed strangely and said, "Maybe at that time, Holy Emperor Chao will be very happy. Whether he will be happy or not is not necessarily the case." Chao Guofeng snorted and said, "How can everything in the world go according to one's will? You may not have the opportunity to witness whether I am happy or not. That's right. That's why I dare not reveal my identity now. As the saying goes, it's better to be safe than sorry. It's never wrong to be more careful." To everyone's surprise, the leader of the other side openly admitted this point. Chao Guofeng's wariness increased. The leader was neither arrogant nor rash, and had a calm temperament. He was indeed a strong opponent. By right, it was entirely by Qi Feng's responsibility that everyone in the Misty Mansion had fallen into such a terrible situation. It was because of his careless scouting that everyone was in a dangerous situation. There was no way forward and no way back. It was really a dangerous situation where only a slim chance of survival was left. However, none of the 6 of them mentioned this matter. It was as if the decision had been made by the 7 of them together, and there was not the slightest bit of resentment. Although the other 6 did not blame him, Bai Chi Feng was panting heavily. His eyes were bloodshot, and with a sudden roar, he pulled out his sword and charged out. Although the brothers did not blame him because of their brotherhood, Bai Chi Feng felt that he could not atone for his mistake even if he died 100 times. It was because of his mistake that the 7 brothers had fallen into such a hopeless situation. Chapter 9-10. The third chapter. Bai Chi Feng no longer wanted to live. His only thought now was to fight with his life on the line. Fight with this life of his and let the other 6 brothers escape. This was his only thought now. However, Chao Guofeng had already been paying attention to him. As soon as he moved, Chao Guofeng had already appeared in front of him. Chao Guofeng looked at him coldly and suddenly slapped his face. The sound of a slap was exceptionally crisp. Bai Chi Feng touched his face a little dazed. For almost 1,000 years, no one had ever slapped him. But today he had been slapped in front of everyone's eyes. But in his heart, he did not have any resentment. Comfortable now, Chao Guofeng Ling looked at him. Do you know that those people are waiting for you to rush over so they can break through? Do you know that the moment you rush out, the lives of the 7 brothers and the future of the Misty Mansion will all be buried in your hands? Do you know that the moment you rush out, as long as you die, even if the 6 of us have the chance to escape, we will not be able to? Bai Chi Feng, when did you become so stupid? Bai Chi Feng's chiseled face suddenly spasmed. His eyes turned red as he roared. But what? It's because of you that everyone is in such a bad situation, right? Chao Guofeng interrupted him. Now that things have come to this, what's the use of rushing out like this? Everyone will remember this debt for you. When we return to the Misty Mansion, we will naturally settle it with you bit by bit. Do you want to die now? How can there be such a cheap thing? That's right. Second brother Bai, you owe everyone. We will naturally settle it with you slowly. We will not let you off just like this. Using death to atone for your sins is too easy for you. The other 5 laughed together, their laughter extremely relaxed. In the face of life and death, these people had cast aside all their worries and become carefree. Bai Chi Feng's emotions slowly calmed down. He nodded solemnly and did not say anything else. His eyes had also returned to normal. Clap, clap, clap. A burst of applause was heard, and a strange voice said, "Ha ha ha, what a close brotherhood." The Misty Mansion was indeed full of talents, and its reputation was well-deserved. However, some people are really too thick-skinned. If I made such a mistake and implicated my brothers, I'm afraid I would have drawn my sword and killed myself to atone for my mistakes. How would he still have the face to strut around in front of his brothers? The thickness of a certain someone's skin is truly unparalleled in the world, unprecedented in both ancient and modern times. This has truly broadened my horizons. I'm truly in admiration. Bai Chi Feng scoffed and was about to speak when he suddenly realized something. Big brother, we need to rush over as soon as possible. This person has no intention of making a move and is just rambling here and there. He's probably waiting for the enemies to rush over and launch a pincer attack on us. Chao Guofeng was shocked as he replied, "That's right. Brothers, follow me and kill our way out." That person laughed. It's a pity that it's too late. Behind Chao Guofeng's group, dozens of people laughed. Obviously, the enemies behind them had caught up. Chao Guofeng did not even turn his head as he shouted, "Bai Chi Feng will take the lead, and the other 5 will be the support. Everyone, use all your strength and charge over. Success or failure, it all depends on this one move." Bai Chi Feng roared, and with a whoosh, his white robe stirred up a gust of wind. He was the first to charge forward, and his speed became faster and faster. Just as he was about to charge out of the cave, the edges of his white robes suddenly started emitting a faint green smoke. In this desperate situation, and under the extreme guilt in his heart, Bai Chi Feng actually broke through his original shackles and unleashed a peak level of power that he had never unleashed before in his life. The other 6 followed closely behind him, like the sharpest swords, intending to break through the last bit of darkness and rush towards the endless light. At this moment, a clear shout rang out behind them, and the enemies that were chasing behind them also charged forward. Bai Chi Feng took the lead, charging forward like a bolt of lightning. Suddenly, in the midst of his high speed, his long sword let out a shrill cry and left its sheath, turning into a blazing white light, brilliant and vast, piercing out. The instant the long sword pierced out, Bai Chi Feng's eyes turned blood red, and his long hair fluttered backward with a whoosh. His head was forward, and his feet were behind. After flying less than 3 zhong, that cluster of sword light had already become as thick as a cylinder. Sword chi shot out in all directions, emitting an incomparably resplendent light in the darkness, and it continued to grow thicker and thicker. It was like a nuclear bomb exploding in this dark space. The sharp sword light shot out, and the instant it reached the enemies, a terrifying sword cry rang out behind Bai Chi Feng. The speed of this sword was several times faster than the speed of sound. The most terrifying body and sword as one. Bai Chi Feng's body and sword, as one this time, had completely surpassed the limits of body and sword as one. Everyone be careful, attack together. Work together to take care of this lunatic first. The enemies on the other side roared, and more than 10 people leaped up at the same time. Sword lights shot out like rainbows, meeting Bai Chi Feng head-on, and the other 5 people from the Misty Mansion had also arrived. Following closely behind Bai Chi Feng's sword, the 6 holy emperors also attacked with full force. Victory or defeat depended on this strike. If this attack was blocked, and they could not charge out, then the 7 people from the Misty Mansion would immediately be caught in a pincer attack. Among the 7 holy emperors, it would be difficult for even one of them to survive. Endless anxiety flashed in the eyes of the leader on the other side. He cursed loudly. **T. Before he could finish his words, the Xian Qi from both sides had already collided. With a loud bang, like a bomb exploding, a series of loud rumbles echoed endlessly in the belly of the mountain. Countless boulders fell from above like huge hailstones. Bai Chi Feng and the rest had the initiative after all, and the 7 of them were attacking with full force, without holding back. This kind of tragic aura was enough to make an army of 10,000 retreat. After this clash, both sides could feel that the strength of the other side had reached a considerable height. Bai Chi Feng's sword light did not falter, and he charged forward fiercely again, forcefully blocking the majority of the opponent's attack with his own strength. Right now, Bai Chi Feng only had one simple thought: charge out. He must definitely bring his brothers and charge out. On his white robe, new sword marks and scars kept appearing, but he didn't seem to notice. In just a few short moments, hundreds of sword marks had already appeared on his body. The leader of the black-robed men attacked with all his might, but he was forced to retreat step by step. Wherever Bai Chi Feng's sword wind passed, the black robes on his body would be cut into pieces like black butterflies, scattering down like ashes. Chao Guofeng, who was in the middle of the 7, immediately saw a purple belt on the opponent's waist. He could not help but howl in grief and indignation. "It's really you guys." His voice was filled with rage and disbelief. The purple gold protectors of Hermitage had this kind of purple belt on their waists, and the people of Illusory Blood Sea usually dress like this. Then, the ones who ambushed the 7 of us were really people from the 3 Holy Lands? Chao Guofeng only felt that he was about to faint from anger. He only had a vague suspicion just now, but now that the evidence was conclusive, there was no longer any room for doubt. "You guys spoiled our plans, provoked us, and even forced us out of Chrysanthemum City, and now you actually want to ambush us here?" In this world, there was actually someone who could do such a shameless thing. No wonder they were so cruel to that free and natural physique youth. It must be because of him, or to frame the evil monarch. No wonder they had to wear those black robes that only the evil monarch's subordinates wore. A scheme to shift the blame to Jiangdong. It was simply too despicable. The leader of the black-robed men was shocked. With a quick scan, he realized that there was a flaw in his clothes, and he subconsciously covered his waist. A look of surprise appeared in his eyes as he hollered, "Bullsh**T. What bullsh asterisk T are you talking about? What you guys and us, is it real or fake? But this moment of panic caused a crack to appear in their originally tight formation. Bai Chi Feng did not care about anything else as he used his own body to control the sword and charged in. With a loud explosion, Bai Chi Feng appeared in the sunlight outside the cave, covered in blood. The other 6 followed closely behind him. Chow, Guo Feng shouted, "Don't care about anything. Run with all your might." These 7 people were all veterans of the pugilistic world. Without even turning their heads back, they ran forward at their fastest speed. No matter what, today was not the time to fight to the death. Behind him, the rumbling of the rocks falling to the ground did not stop. The sounds were almost continuous, and a series of curses could be heard. Damn it, a landslide actually happened at this time. So F asterisk King unlucky. The heavens would never seal off all paths. It was actually a landslide that obstructed them. Chao Guofeng heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Carrying Jun Moxie in his arms, he flew out like a bolt of lightning. 3 holy lands, if I don't get my revenge for this debt, I'm not a man. While Chao Guofeng was still thinking about this, the furious Bai Chi Feng directly scolded. Scums of the 3 holy lands, listen up. This debt, I will remember it. From now on, I will not rest until I die. The remaining 5 people were also covered in injuries. The anger in their hearts was also at its peak, not necessarily any less than Bai Chi Feng's. Thinking back to that dangerous battle just now, all of them felt a lingering fear in their hearts. Just now, if he and the others had rushed forward a second later, the 7 of them would have suffered the tragic fate of not even leaving behind their bones. Although this battle was short, and the whole process was only 1 or 2 moves, the danger of the battle was something they had never seen before. However, the danger of the battle was something he had never seen before. In his entire life, he had encountered countless dangerous battles, but there had never been a battle like this. In that short exchange just now, no matter which one of the 7 people, they had all been on the edge of life and death dozens of times. Just now, they were in the middle of the battle and only had the thought of escaping, so they did not feel it. But thinking back now, they were all covered in cold sweat. Running in the wind on the empty road, this kind of cold feeling made their scalps go numb. Chapter 9:11. Seeing the 7 holy emperors of the Misty Mansion moving further and further away, the black-robed men finally stopped panicking. They looked at each other and laughed. One of them said, "After today's matter, I'm afraid that the 3 holy lands and the Misty Mansion will be in a stalemate. Young Master's plan is really sinister. It might not be so easy. After all, both sides have their superiors restricting them. However, even if it doesn't reach a stalemate, both sides will not be able to cooperate like before." Another person rubbed his chin and said, "Also, the 7 holy emperors of the Misty Mansion are really strong. Even in such a disadvantageous situation, they still had to face the combined attacks of the 10 of us. Yet, they were still able to forcefully break through, and even cause many of us to suffer heavy injuries. The reputation of the Holy Emperor of the Misty Mansion is indeed not in vain." The black-robed man who spoke took off his mask, revealing a cold face that seemed to be carved out of white jade. If Chao Guofeng saw it, he would definitely exclaim in shock, "How could it be you?" This person was the violent Gale Sword God, Feng Wanyun. Without a doubt, the others were also Jun Moxie's men. This ambush was originally part of Jun Moxie's plan, giving away a seedling with a free and natural physique for no reason. If there were no follow-up plans, who would believe that such a good thing had fallen from the sky? Thus, Jun Moxie had meticulously arranged this ambush operation. Of course, this was just a show. No matter what, they would definitely go easy on the other party. If they really killed all 7 holy emperors, Jun Moxie would really not be able to find a place to cry, even if he wanted to. That's right, we have 11 holy emperors, huh? The others also started discussing and took off their masks one by one. Who else could it be other than the holy emperors who were guarding the 9 serenities and 14 masters? At this moment, the people in the cave had also come out. Although there were many of them, they were not of much use in the battle between the Holy Emperor. These were all members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, and the strongest among them was a 4th-level saint. Although this was already very strong, against Holy Emperor-level experts like Chao Guofeng and the others, it was still useless. Once he came into contact with it, he would only be courting death. No wonder they were only shouting at the back and didn't make any move to charge forward. There was a huge amount of exaggeration in this. All right, mission complete. Let's go. I'll treat everyone to a drink. This was the voice of the solitary eagle. He waved his hand and said in a heroic manner, "How old are you, brat? How dare you call yourself a father in front of us? Are you rebelling?" The one who spoke was Lu Shenghuang. He rolled his eyes at the solitary eagle, looking very dissatisfied. The solitary eagle shrunk his neck. He didn't dare to be rash towards this person who called him a kid. The other party had lived for at least 1,000 years while he was only 60 or 70 years old. Wouldn't it be a joke if he pretended to be an old man in front of them? It was only right and proper for the other party to call him a kid. In order to punish you, this time, I'm going to show my true form and drink, Lu Shenghuang announced proudly. The other holy emperors of the Tian Fa forest all agreed and rubbed their palms together, swearing to drink to their heart's content. The solitary eagle and Feng Wanyun looked at each other in a daze. With their huge bodies in their true forms, they would probably need at least tens of thousands of liters of wine to get drunk, right? They couldn't help but laugh bitterly. The solitary eagle touched his somewhat shriveled money pouch, the corner of his mouth twitching. Another 3 days later. We're finally almost there. As long as we climb over that mountain in front, we'll reach the entrance to the Misty Mansion. Bai Chi Feng pointed to the front with a relaxed expression. Although his injuries were not light, after these few days of recuperation, they were no longer a hindrance. The Holy Emperor's powerful recovery abilities were still very effective. Ever since the battle the day before yesterday, when he bore most of the pressure for everyone and charged out, Bai Chi Feng finally didn't feel so guilty anymore. But he still felt a little embarrassed. Everyone also tactfully didn't bring up that matter to prevent him from feeling awkward. Right now, Jun Moxie was in the arms of another Holy Emperor, still in an unconscious state. Along the way, everyone had already taken turns 5 to 6 times. The 7 Holy Emperors were all amazed by this brat's strong life force. Every day, this fellow looked like he was going to breathe his last at any moment, but he just didn't, persisting all the way until now. He was actually still in that half-dead, half-alive state from before. It seemed like there was no difference between giving him Xian Qi and not giving him Xian Qi. Although it wouldn't get better, it wouldn't worsen either. At the start, everyone was still worried that this brat wouldn't die just like that. But now they were all very relieved. From the looks of it, he definitely wouldn't die. And Jun Moxie was also very worried these few days. F***CK, why are these people walking so slowly? Do you think it's such a good thing to be lying here every day? But is about to get heat rashes. Finally, with great difficulty, they were about to reach the entrance of Misty Mansion. Jun Moxie breathed a long sigh of relief. It's almost over. Later, if the doctor in Misty Mansion treats me, I will definitely give him face. I just need a dose of medicine to wake up, and then I will quickly get up and thank him profusely. But facts often prove that there was nothing wrong with the saying, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. Just when the Holy Emperors were excitedly discussing the various follow-up matters after entering Misty Mansion, and then what to do, suddenly, there are only 7 of you, and you still want to hide in Misty Mansion? This young master has been waiting for you guys for a long time. A gloomy voice came out. How can anyone who hurts this young master escape so easily? If I don't leave some price behind, where will I put my face? Along with the sudden appearance of the cold voice, a figure silently appeared in front of everyone. The person who came was dressed in black, like a ghost. That person suddenly appeared. Although it was broad daylight and the sun was shining brightly, when everyone saw him, a kind of eerie feeling rose in their hearts. The person in front of him had a head full of jet black hair, which was parted in the middle of his forehead and reached his waist. He had a tall stature and a pair of slender legs. Although he was very close to him, he still couldn't see what his face looked like. Only his pair of cold, lightning-like eyes were flashing with endless coldness and killing intent. Under this pair of eyes, everyone suddenly felt angry, as if they were looking up at a tall mountain. Unrivaled. Unrivaled. This person who suddenly appeared was naturally the 9 serenities and 14 masters. As soon as the voice sounded, Jun Moxie, who was on the other side, cursed in his heart. King 9 serenities and 14 masters. Couldn't you have come back at any time? Why did you have to appear at this critical moment? If you ruin my plan, I'll trample you to death in the future. This time, when Chao Guofeng and the others saw the 9 serenities and 14 masters, they all felt that he had changed into a different person. Although the previous 9 serenities and 14 masters was ruthless and decisive, it was far from being as terrifying as he was now. Right now, the 14th young master was like a living hell, boundless, vast, and ethereal. There was no doubt that his previous injuries had completely recovered, including the power that had been sealed for so many years, as well as all the internal and external injuries that he had suffered. They had all recovered. The current 9 serenities and 14 masters was the 9 serenities and 14 masters in their most complete state. Chao Guofeng and the others looked at each other, and they all realized this at the same time. However, it was precisely because they thought of this that the 7 of them had a look of despair in their eyes. Previously, the 3 Holy Lands, the Heaven Saint Palace, and the 7 people from the Misty Mansion, a total of more than 20 Holy Emperor, had besieged the 9 serenities and 14 masters, who had just broken through the seal and only had 20 to 30% of their strength left, but they were still defeated by him. He had heavily injured several of them, and after killing several of them, he had calmly left with a body full of wounds. Now, out of the more than 20 Holy Emperor, there were only 7 people left, and the 9 serenities and 14 masters on the other side was in their most powerful state. How were they supposed to fight this battle? Chao Guofeng's face was ashen. He stepped out from the crowd and said indifferently, "Since 14th brother has come to our door to collect the debt, then we, who owe the debt, will naturally not run away. What do you want to do? Just say it. Sooner or later, a person will be stabbed in the head in the pugilistic world. The 7 of us have long been prepared for today's matter and have been looking forward to it for a long time. To be able to die in the hands of the famous 9 serenities and 14 masters is much better than dying in a sickbed. Please." The 9 serenities and 14 masters laughed strangely and said, "Do you think that if you put on an expression of facing death calmly and passionately facing death, this young master will recognize a hero and give you a way out? Let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you kneel down and beg for mercy, fight to the death, or wait to be slaughtered. The result will be the same. In today's world, I believe that no one can save the lives of the 7 of you." His eyes widened, and he shouted sinisterly, "The 7 of you here, this young master will definitely kill you today." Everyone's faces were filled with anger. No matter what, they were all experts of the Holy Emperor. How could they allow themselves to be humiliated like this? Death was one thing, but this punishment was something that they would politely decline. The eyes of the 9 serenities and 14 masters flashed coldly, and he floated forward expressionlessly. Just at this time, a voice as soft as the buzzing of a mosquito sounded in the 9 nether 14th young master's ears. "My God, can you not toy with me like this? It wasn't easy for me to trick them into bringing me into the misty, illusory manner, but you came to mess things up. Do I have such a deep hatred for you?" The 9 serenities and 14 masters was stunned. His cold eyes looked in the direction of a voice and saw Jun Moxie wrapped up like a dumpling. He could not help but smile bitterly in his heart. Chapter 9:12. 2 hours and 1. A whole 14 hours. Writing, pushing. Oh my God, I'm useless to the extreme. It's already 3:30 in the morning. No. Today, this young master must get rid of these bastards. Otherwise, where would I put my face? The nine nether 14th young master's anger soared to the heavens. Why are you master and disciple doing this? I'm not related to you. Why should I listen to you? Even if I owe you a favor, you can't make me lose my freedom. Why do you have to stick your nose into my business? How can I live like this? F***CK. You owe me a simple favor. You're simply ungrateful. You've wasted my master's painstaking efforts. He didn't hesitate to consume a great deal of his own cultivation and even risked his life to save you. My master is the most chivalrous, gentle, courageous, and sincere towards you. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that his kindness is the same as giving you a new lease on life. Now, you've actually come to destroy the wonderful plan that we've laid out for a long time. Do you still have conscience? Do you still have the temperament of a master? Tell me, what are you doing? Do you even know how to write the character, human? Jun Moxie was furious. He sent a telepathic message while cursing. Jun Moxie was also anxious. If 9 serenities and 14 masters insisted on not leaving, then wouldn't the plan he had spent so much effort to set up be for naught? I've wasted so much manpower and resources. If I knew this was going to happen, I would have gone to pick up girls. F***CK. What the F***CK are you talking about? How am I ungrateful? Think about it. Haven't I helped you enough? If you dare to slander this young master's great character again, this young master will strangle you to death first. Do you think I wouldn't dare? The 9 nether 14th young master was clearly extremely depressed and on the verge of going crazy. If 14th master is really so great and has such strength of character, then leaving is the best proof. Naturally, I can't slander you. Jun Moxie was shameless. It's fine if you want me to leave, but you have to agree to one condition of mine. Otherwise, the death of these 7 people would be a done deal. Even if you say that this young master is ungrateful, I can't care about it anymore. 9 serenities and 14 masters stood in the wind and posed coolly. He used his aura to suppress the 7 holy emperors in front of him. What is it? Say it. As long as I can do it, I'll do my best. What kind of person was young Master Jun? Even though he promised, he still left some leeway. If the 9 nether 14th young master's conditions were too difficult to fulfill, he would naturally have to reconsider. I believe that you've gone through so much trouble to enter the misty, illusory manner. You're definitely not doing anything good. You might as well do it more thoroughly. 9 serenities and 14 masters still had the arrogant look of a master, but his tone sounded wretched to Jun Moxie. My personal weapon was lost in the Misty Mansion for some reason. After so many years, I've never been interested in forging another one. It's not as convenient as the original one. Just promise me that you'll help me take it out. It's a very simple condition. Personal weapon. Jun Moxie was stunned. This young master had once used the 9 netherine flames to forge a personal weapon, the divine tune. In the previous battle, this young master was surrounded by the 3 holy lands, the misty, illusory manor, and the Tion Fa Beast King, and accidentally lost the divine tune. This young master was also trapped in the 9 nether passageway, and the divine tune fell into the hands of the experts of the misty, illusory manor. This is the greatest humiliation of my life. 9 serenities and 14 masters said, as long as you promise to help me take it out and return it to me, I'll be magnanimous and let those 7 people go. Jun Moxie suddenly understood. No wonder he didn't use his weapon even when he saw 9 serenities and 14 masters fighting so many times. Even when they were in the dangerous Tion Fa forest, he didn't use his weapon. So this was the reason he lost his personal weapon. No wonder he was so angry. This condition is not a problem. Isn't it just a weapon? I'll definitely help you take it out. Jun Moxie said confidently. He thought to himself, my target this time is the 7-colored holy fruit. In terms of value, it's definitely more precious than your divine tune. Since I've already done it, why should I be afraid of doing it again? Jun Dashao was very sure, but he was also a little sad. To 9 serenities and 14 masters, the 3 holy lands and Tion Fa were just targets to conquer. The misty Mansion was the true enemy of 9 serenities and 14 masters. But to June Moxie, the feeling that the misty mansion gave him was much stronger than the 3 Holy Lands. Because up until now, only 7 holy emperors had come out from the misty mansion. But the camaraderie between the 7 of them had touched June Moxie greatly. This was true camaraderie. Among the 7 of them, Chao Guofeng's position as the leader was completely unshakable. As for the second place, by Chi Feng, although his personality was sharp and extreme, and he often did things without considering the consequences, stubbornly going his own way, it could be said that he had brought many unexpected troubles to the group of 7. Whether it was pouring leftovers into He Zhiqiu's bed, or clashing with Zhang Mubai in Chrysanthemum City, or leading the fire into a death trap this time. These were all things that were hard to let go of. In fact, no matter which one it was, as long as the consequences were a little more serious, these people who were standing here today would definitely not be the original group. But the other 6 people did not have a single word of complaint. When there was no trouble, everyone would bicker. It did not matter. But when there was trouble, they would work together to face it and solve it together. No matter how this trouble came about, or who it was for, there was only one sentence. Brothers' trouble was their own trouble. Not a single one of them had said this before, but they did it with their actions. This was what was truly rare and commendable. When June Moxie saw the 7 of them, he would often feel a trace of warmth in his heart. At this time, he would unconsciously think of Tang Yuan. If there came a day when he couldn't handle the trouble anymore, that fatty would definitely stand up for him. He would not consider whether he could handle it or not, only knowing to stand up for him. He would rather burn all the fat on his body to support him with all his might. That wretched silk pants in the eyes of the world, that unambitious fatty, was such a person. That fatty was his friend, the only friend in his past life, and this life, the only friend he acknowledged. Towards such a relationship, June Moxie treasured it very much, and even felt touched. And towards someone who could have such a relationship, June Moxie also did not want to hurt him. He really did not want to hurt him. Also, there was Chao Guofeng's love for him. He was willing to sacrifice his own lifespan in order to heal his injuries and extend his life. This was a huge favor, although he was not injured at all, and that treatment was a passive acceptance, and it could even be a complete scam. Although Chao Guofeng did it out of love for talent, and in his bones, it was for the future of the misty, illusory manor, and he did not know his true identity. But this wholehearted love had truly fallen on him, and he could clearly feel it. June Mo Xie didn't want to hurt Chao Guofeng, even though he had received this love through a coincidental deception. But he didn't want to harm Chao Guofeng. It was not entirely because he wanted to return the favor, but because of that true love. June Moxie did not want Chao Guofeng to lose a lot of his lifespan because of this. Therefore, he did not hesitate to reverse the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to compensate for Chao Guofeng's depleted life force. He even strengthened Chao Guofeng unknowingly, extending his lifespan. Therefore, when the 9 serenities and 14 masters appeared with killing intent, June Moxie was so anxious to stop the 9 serenities and 14 masters, because he could not allow himself to watch these people die in front of him. It was not entirely because of the 7-colored holy fruit that was right in front of him. It was also because of his own conscience. June Moxie could take by force, he could swindle, and he could even completely ignore the so-called benevolence, righteousness, and morality. But there was a precondition. He could repay kindness and enmity with a clear conscience, and he could never let his own conscience be blamed. As long as his conscience was at peace, even if it was murder and arson, he could do it with a clear conscience. Going against the 3 holy lands, and even becoming an irreconcilable enemy, was because the 3 holy lands first plotted against him and killed him. Therefore, June Moxie could kill without any psychological burden. Even if all the people from the 3 holy lands were sages, June Moxie could still kill them without any pressure. But facing the misty mansion, it was completely different. To June Moxie, The Misty Mansion was an extremely unfamiliar place. The people in the Misty Mansion had never taken the initiative to infringe on June Moxie's interests. Moreover, this time, it was June Moxie who took the initiative to attack the Misty Mansion, just because an innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. It was because the Misty Mansion had the 7-colored holy fruit that could keep one young forever. And now, June Moxie urgently needed that thing. This reason was enough for June Moxie, but to the Misty Mansion, it was an undeserved disaster. But if they asked for it openly, the Misty Mansion would definitely not give it to them. This became the crux of the conflict between the two sides. If the Misty Mansion doesn't react so strongly after this incident, then after I successfully cultivate the 7-colored holy fruit in the Hongjun Pagoda in the future, I can compensate them double the amount. Regardless of whether they accept it or not, I really have no other choice now. This is the only way to compensate them in the long run. And the Heaven's Saint Palace, I'll deal with it the same way. June Moxie laughed bitterly in his heart as he muttered to himself, "If you treat me sincerely, I'll save 7 of your lives. Although you may not know, I have no qualms about it. Do it happily. There are some things that we know we're doing wrong, or perhaps we're doing it too selfishly. But if we let June Moxie be like those old fellows in the Heaven's Saint Palace, turning into a pile of bones in just a few hundred years, and live alone for thousands of years, June Moxie would definitely not be able to do it. Therefore, on this matter, June Moxie was willing to be completely selfish. If he couldn't even take care of his own family, how could he talk about the rest of the world? This sentence might be a little biased, but it was not without reason. Hearing June Moxie's agreement, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters snorted and said, "Kid, you've promised me. Don't forget it. Otherwise, even with your master's protection, I'll still kill you." June Moxie snorted and said confidently, "Even if I really forget it, what can you do?" Chao Guofeng and the rest knew that they were going to die, and their faces were full of despair and tragedy. Facing the fully recovered 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, unless the Misty Mansion and the Holy Land's Holy Emperor experts, as well as a few old seniors attacked together, there was no way they could suppress him again. There were only 7 of them in front of them, and the difference in strength was too great. They were probably not even qualified to make the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters vomit blood. The 7 Holy Emperors were in an atmosphere of extreme despair, but the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had been standing there ever since they came out, putting on an incomparably pretentious pose and not saying a word. F***CK, if you want to kill, just kill. Will it kill you if you want to cut? What do you mean by leaving us here? Are you playing a game of cat and mouse? The Holy Emperors cursed in their hearts. Lunatic, just as he was feeling uneasy, he suddenly saw the 9 Nether 14th young master furrow his brows and raise his head to look at the mountain in the distance. With an extremely dejected tone, he cursed. F***CK, what's going on? Why did he come out again? Finishing his words, he shot up from the ground and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. He did not even have the time to say a word, and just left in a hurry. What was going on? Seeing this, the 7 Saint Emperors were at a loss. You came here to fight and kill, so why did you leave just like that after letting out a nonchalant fart? You are indeed a lunatic. You really cannot use common sense to judge them all. But the result was still good. At least the danger of death was temporarily averted. Just this point alone was better than anything else. Everyone leave quickly. This lunatic has obviously been distracted by something else. We must enter the Misty Mansion before he returns. Otherwise, our lives will really be left here. Don't waste any more time. Chao Guofeng was the first to regain his senses. He said in a low and hurried voice as he carried June Moxie and dashed out like a bolt of lightning. Everyone also came to their senses and started moving quickly. Bai Chi Feng stayed at the back to bring up the rear, walking at the very back. This was also their tacit understanding. Once there was danger, the strongest leader would charge in front and open a path for his brothers, while the second strongest would stay behind to guard the rear. There was a reason for such an arrangement. If there were any obstacles in front, it would be best if the strongest Chao Guofeng could charge through. But if even he could not, then it would be a waste of time for the others. And Bai Chi Feng would guard the rear. Even if the 9 serenities and 14 masters caught up, he would be able to delay them with his life, giving his brothers a chance to enter the safety zone of the Misty Mansion. Jun Moxie was especially appreciative of this arrangement. If it was a normal team, most of them would have the leader in the middle to protect them, letting their brothers go through fire and water while they reap the benefits. There were very few teams like this where a team leader would put himself in danger at any time and place. In the middle of the snow, there was a small tavern. If Jun Moxie could open his eyes, he would definitely recognize this place. He had been to this place before. It was the small tavern that he stopped at on the way back to fetch his mother. It was also here that he met the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan for the first time. The 7 of them did not stop at all. After passing through the tavern, they walked for a few more li and came to a valley covered in snow. The group walked down the valley. Chao Guofeng waved his hand, and the snow on the ground flew up neatly. On the mountain wall that was originally covered in snow, a strange pattern appeared. Everyone glanced at each other and heaved sighs of relief in unison. Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng clasped their palms together. Both of them gave a deep grunt and circulated their full strength at the same time. 2 vast and pure Xian Qi instantly burst out, rising silently from their palms and forming a ball of white mist in the air. Then, it transformed into an azure dragon bearing its fangs and claws, burrowing into the strange pattern on the mountain wall with a whoosh. As the Xian Qi azure dragon burrowed into the strange pattern, there was a sudden tremor in the air, and a huge door suddenly appeared. It wouldn't be surprising if a door appeared on the stone wall due to some kind of mechanism. But this door did not appear on a mountain wall, but in the void above the mountain wall. Jun Mo Xie had been using his spiritual sense to observe everything that was happening in the surroundings along the way, and he was also surprised by this sudden change of events. From the looks of it, the person who opened up the Misty Mansion was also an extraordinary person. Jun Moxie could completely feel that the Xian Qi that Chao Guofeng and Bai Chi Feng had released earlier was definitely not ordinary Xian Qi. At the very least, it was completely different from the ones used in battle. It seemed to be a completely different kind of unique skill, or perhaps this was the unique power needed to open the Misty Mansion. Just as he was thinking, he felt his body being carried up. Then, with a slight tremor, he felt as if he had arrived in a void. Only after a long time did she feel Chao Guofeng's feet finally land on the ground. Once again, Misty Mansion, I've finally arrived at this legendary place. And now, there are still 5 months and 10 days until the war for seizing the heavens began. Jun Moxie closed his eyes and pondered. Right now, his side already had 11 Holy Emperor level experts. Mei Shuiyan, Solitary Eagle, Feng Wan Yun, and the 8 old Holy Emperor Beast Kings of Tian Fa. Including himself, it would be 12. But those 8 Beast Kings were the seniors of Tian Fa after all, and had dominated the Tian Fa forest for a long time. It would not be easy to control them, and he did not think of controlling them. The current situation should be enough. After consuming the Spirit Stone, Immortal Milk, Bear Mountain, Long Crane, and the rest of the Beast Kings should also be able to reach the level of the Holy Emperor. When he returned, he would use the next level of pills to help them increase their strength once more. He also had to increase the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer Beast Kings. He had to complete all these preparations before the war for seizing the heavens. At that time, it would be the battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens. After the battle, he would go all out and kill his way through the pillar of heaven's mountains. He would kill all those disgusting strange races and pull them up by the roots. That was about all the current plans he had in mind. And there was only one prerequisite right now. His operation in the Misty Mansion had to be successful, and the entire process had to be completed as soon as possible. Only then would he have the time to prepare for everything that he had just been thinking about. In other words, the 7-colored holy fruit in the Misty Mansion and the divine melody of the 9 serenities and 14 masters had to be obtained within 2 months, and then leave this place and return to Tian Fa. Tom was really pressing to a hair-raising degree. Jun Moxie counted with his fingers in his heart, and he could not help but sigh. Every minute and second must be seized. Chao Guofeng and the other 6 surrounded Jun Moxie as they charged forward. Jun Moxie could clearly see that they were charging towards a large hall. On both sides of the road, there were rows of houses, and there were trees that provided shade. There was even the sun and clouds in the sky. The sounds of hawking could be heard from both sides, and there was actually a food market. Jun Moxie exclaimed in his heart, "What the F*** CK?" Everything in the misty mansion was actually no different from the outside world. While Jun Daxiao was feeling puzzled and surprised, he had already followed Chao Guofeng into the large hall. "Palace Lord, please take a look at this child. You must save him. This child has the legendary free and natural physique. The 1 in 10,000 free and natural physique." As soon as Chao Guofeng's urgent words rang out, the hall, which was originally bustling with activity and many people talking, suddenly became completely silent. Then, many people gathered around, and their eyes lit up as they looked at the unconscious Jun Moxie. In fact, it seemed as if they were looking at a rare treasure. Free and natural physique. Just these 4 words were enough to make everyone here lose their usual calmness. This was a physique that only the legendary 9 Nether first young master had. To put it bluntly, even if a ginseng turned into a human, it might not have as much potential as the owner of the free and natural physique. A hand was placed on Jun Moxie's wrist, and a gentle force drilled into his body. After circling around him, Jun Moxie could clearly feel this qi vibrating fiercely in his body. It was obvious that this person had received quite a bit of stimulation. Chao Guofeng exclaimed in shock, "Palace Lord, you be gentler. This child is too weak. He cannot withstand the impact of Xian Qi." Jun Moxie naturally cooperated, and his body trembled. He coughed weakly, and a trickle of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. That gentle force immediately retreated from his body, and a pair of burning eyes landed on Jun Moxie's body. With a pleasantly surprised voice, he said, "As expected, his meridians are like bamboo, and his cultivation is not above Xinxian's. But his body is like jade, and his dantian is like an empty lake. Ah, this is indeed the legendary free and natural physique. Heavens! Quick, quick, quick! Bring the 7-colored holy fruits." A person sprinted out with hurried steps. This person excitedly ran a few rounds around Jun Moxie's body, rubbing his hands. Jun Moxie could clearly hear the sound of his palms rubbing together. Free and natural physique. It really is the free and natural physique. May the ancestors bless us. The Misty Mansion is finally going to rise again. This old man must definitely take this free and natural physique genius in as my disciple and train him personally. If he would walk down the wrong path, wouldn't it be a great pity? Chapter 9:13. Palace Master. This child is my disciple. Holy Emperor Chao said with his eyes wide open. Isn't it the same no matter whose disciple it is? Anyway, everyone is doing this for the future of the Misty Mansion. On this basis, we naturally need a good teacher, the Palace Master said sanctimoniously. Chao Guofeng was speechless. This was what he wanted to say, but the other party said it first. Palace Master, he has already acknowledged me as his master. You can't just take it by force. This isn't good, right? Chao Guofeng was about to stomp his feet and beat his chest. It doesn't matter. When he recovers from his injuries, you can expel him from the sect. That's not a problem at all. I don't mind. The Palace Master said happily. What? You don't mind? You definitely won't mind, but I will mind. The 7 of us will mind very much. Bai Qifeng took a step forward and said heavily, Palace Lord, in order to bring back this young man with the free and natural physique, Big Brother Chao did not hesitate to fall out with the 3 Holy Lands, argued with Zhan Mubai for a long time, and even fought fiercely with He Ziqiu and Hai Wuya. Also, along the way, we even fell into an ambush set up by those bastards from the Three Holy Lands. If not for Big Brother Chow holding the fort, everyone risked their lives to fight, and almost all of us would have been wiped out. This is still fine, but before we fell into the ambush, this young man with a free and natural physique was heavily injured by the scoundrels, and his life was hanging by a thread. If not for Big Brother Chow sacrificing his life to use the return of spring technique to save him, he would have died long ago. The more Bai Chi Feng spoke, the more agitated he became. Also, not long ago, when we were about to reach the Misty Mansion, we were ambushed by the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. If it wasn't for the fact that he had other matters to attend to and left in a hurry, all of us would have died long ago. Palace Lord Big Brother Chow has really sacrificed too much for this youth. Moreover, this is the only disciple that Big Brother Chow has taken a liking to in these hundreds of years. He didn't finish his sentence, but his last sentence was extremely heavy. He was just short of saying it out loud. You can't fight with him. No one could snatch it from him. Even if you are the palace master, you will not be an exception. Bai Chi Feng's thin face was filled with rage, and his eyes were so bright that no one dared to look at him directly. Looking at Bai Chi Feng's flustered and exasperated look, if Palace Lord still insisted on fighting for this youth, Bai Chi Feng might really start cursing out loud. It was not impossible for him to start a fight. Everyone fell silent. No one expected that Chow Guofeng had already sacrificed so much for this free and natural physique master. The hall instantly fell into an extreme silence. After a moment, a sharp voice suddenly rang out. Bai Chi Feng. By Master Chun Bai Chi by Master. Master, are you talking to the palace master? Bye Master. Bye Master is Master. Bye is by was. Master is. Bye King. By the palace lord waved his hand and smiled. Saint Emperor Bai's words are reasonable. Since Saint Emperor Chow has done so much for this child, I shouldn't take advantage of him. Holy Emperor Bai. Although Holy Emperor Bai's words were a little rash, it was out of concern for his sworn brother. No need to be offended. To have such a sincere person in our misty, illusory manner should be rewarded. How can we blame him? Yes, Palace Master is magnanimous. Everyone bowed in unison. The Palace Master took 2 steps and smiled. What is there to admire? Didn't you want to get a share of his good disciple when you saw him? Now that I think about it, isn't it because your mental state is not good enough? No matter who he is, isn't it still the commonwealth of our Misty Mansion? Holy Emperor Chow risked his life for this child, using the rejuvenation technique. It is not just for himself. Everything is for the big picture of the Misty Mansion. Holy Emperor Chow's heart is what is truly worthy of everyone's admiration. Chow Guofeng said bitterly, Palace Master overpraises me. This trip was filled with hardships. Just thinking about it was enough to shake one to the core. He had experienced hundreds of winters and summers in his life, but when it came to the thrill of life and death, he had never experienced it before. The Palace Master laughed and said, Since everyone's starting point is for the sake of the Misty Mansion, what's the point of arguing? How about this? This child will take Holy Emperor Chow as his master, and can be considered as Holy Emperor Chow's successor. However, other than Holy Emperor Chow's teachings, if anyone has any unique skills, please don't be stingy. Just find a time to pass it down. The earlier a prodigy with a free and natural physique matures, the earlier our misty, illusory manner grows stronger. What do you all think? Palace Master is wise. This suggestion is just right. We agree. Everyone bowed. Just at this moment, a series of hurried footsteps could be heard from afar. The footsteps were clearly several hundred zhang away, but in the next moment, they had already reached the main hall. Obviously, the person who had gone to retrieve the 7-colored holy fruits had returned. At the same time, the sound of wind whistling could be heard, and several figures scuttled in. An old voice said impatiently, I heard that our mansion has found a young man with a free and natural physique. Following that, there were many voices asking questions, the messy voices filled with anxiety and disbelief. After all, this news had come too suddenly. A legend was about to appear in front of their eyes. Even these secluded experts with hundreds and thousands of years of cultivation could not suppress their agitation. In the next instant, 7 to 8 old faces were already hovering above June Moxie's body, as if they were looking at the most exquisite work of art. They looked at June Moxie with infatuation, as if they were admiring the most beautiful treasure in the world. Following that, 7 to 8 hands touched him from head to toe, from top to bottom, touching everywhere. June Moxie almost jumped up uncontrollably. Heavens, great earth, I'm actually being touched by a bunch of old fellows. F***. Why do I feel like I'm a Japanese porn star? As expected, it's the legendary free and natural physique. The old fellows were all stunned, their voices sounding as if they were in a dream. The legend had really appeared in front of their eyes, and all the experts present were filled with endless praise. Such a miraculous talent was indeed extraordinary. There is no need for them to worry about not having a successor. This genius is already injured to such an extent. Why aren't we treating his injuries? One of the old fellows stomped his feet in anger, scratching his ears and cheeks anxiously. If he were to die, what should we do? Black lines appeared on everyone's faces. If it wasn't for you bunch of old fellows, we would have to confirm whether this lad really has the free and natural physique before making a decision, lest we waste our mansion's guardian spirit fruit. At this time, the 7 colored holy fruits should have already entered the lad's stomach. Who knows? He might have already recovered from his injuries. But now, you guys are blaming others. The palace lord coughed twice and said, "Senior uncle, there's no rush. This youth's life isn't in any danger for the time being." Why isn't his life in any danger? What's with your eyes? From this old man's point of view, there's a huge danger. Look, this place has already turned black, and even his tongue has hardened. He might turn into a corpse of the free and natural physique any time. And you still say there's no rush. Your brain must have been flooded with water. The old man jumped up, spittle flying everywhere. Clearly, he was really anxious. Otherwise, even if his status was above the palace lord, he wouldn't dare to speak to the leader of a land in such a manner. The palace lord coughed repeatedly and instructed, "Hand over the holy fruits." He had already decided to ignore these few old fellows. If he continued arguing with them, this free and natural physique prodigy might already be dead by the time he finished arguing with them. With a light paw sound, as though something had been opened, a strange fragrance wafted out. In an instant, the entire hall was filled with the fragrance of orchids and musk. With just a whiff, one would feel a refreshing feeling in their heart, and their spirits would be roused. The palace lord personally took the holy fruit and walked to June Moxie. With a light flick of his finger, a crack appeared on the skin of the fruit, and the ripe flesh inside instantly melted into a spiritual liquid. Following that, June Moxie felt a pinch on his chin. His mouth opened slightly, and an ice-cold liquid entered his mouth. It flowed down his throat and down his esophagus. Sweet, really sweet. Licking it, but not greasy. Too delicious. June Dashao was savoring the aftertaste, his mouth agape as he waited for the next one. Such a delicious fruit. Eating 8 to 1,000 a day wouldn't be too much. Following that, another fragrance wafted over, and another ice-cold liquid entered his mouth. June Moxie waited happily to enjoy it, but who knew that this time, an extremely astringent taste would appear on his taste buds, and he almost retched. Thankfully, June Dashao still remembered his identity. His body was heavily injured, and he couldn't move, so he could only endure it. Was this the 7-colored holy fruit or the Chinese gold thread? F***, so bitter? Even the Chinese gold thread wouldn't be this bitter, right? Just as his thoughts were running wild, another liquid entered his mouth. This time, it turned into a spicy taste. If not for the fact that June Moxie had the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, which allowed him to freely control the changes in his body, he would probably be sweating profusely from the spiciness. Before the spicy taste could fade, another sour taste followed. June Dashao felt as if he had been tossed into a jar to soak. It was too sour, really too sour. Before he could think further, the salty taste arrived again. Just like that, sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty. The 5 tastes of life were tasted one by one. Fortunately, the 6th taste was relatively simple. There was no taste at all, just like plain water, and it could adjust the taste buds. The 7th taste that followed was an indescribably strange taste. It was as if all the different tastes of life were gathered in this 7th fruit for a meeting. Even despair, sorrow, joy, comfort, sweetness, and all the other feelings of life came together. A total of 7 holy fruits were swallowed in succession. Jun Moxie suddenly felt a burst of flames rising from his dantian, and in an instant his limbs and bones were set ablaze. The 7 enormous forces, after rushing around in his body for a while, converged into an even larger torrent at the location of his dantian. Then, with an abnormally slow and steady speed, it slowly but firmly rushed into his meridians. Tragic. I haven't slept for more than 40 hours. This plot is tormenting me to the point of breaking down. I've written it, and I've written it, and I've written it again. The plot is ready-made, but I just can't find a feeling. I'm sorry about yesterday's matter. Yesterday, I suddenly felt that the arrangement of so many things wasn't right. I sat in front of the computer in a daze for an entire night and didn't write a single word. Chapter 9:14. Wherever it passed, the fake scars would instantly recover their original vitality. One had to know that although these wounds were faked, in terms of the degree of destruction, they were not inferior to real serious injuries. Otherwise, how could they have fooled so many experts? But such serious injuries, after the holy fruit flowed through them, actually completely disappeared without a trace. The effects of this 7-colored holy fruit were indeed extraordinary. After clearly sensing this, Jun Moxie was secretly delighted, because he could feel that other than the shocking effects of this holy fruit, there was another benefit to it. That was, its medicinal effects were extremely slow. To the human body, it only had a nourishing effect and did not have any destructive effects. In other words, even if it was a normal person who had never cultivated any shinshi before, eating these 7 holy fruits would definitely not cause their bodies to explode. Just this effect alone had already surpassed too many legendary treasures. Even the miraculous pills recorded in the Hongjun Pagoda could not compare. If they had these holy fruits, then wouldn't that mean that Guanqing Han and Dugu Xiaoyi could both consume them without worry? And in this entire treatment process, there was actually no need for any external assistance. Everything was just the energy of the holy fruit, and it was enough to complete the entire treatment process. Just like that, the palace lord and the rest watched attentively while listening to Bai Chi Feng and the rest narrate their encounters on the way out. The energy of the holy fruit flowed slowly and steadily, gently but persistently, nourishing Jun Moxie's body. When Jun Moxie felt the energy of the holy fruit passing through the Xiao Zhong acupoint in his chest, Jun Moxie knew that it was time for him to wake up. If he still did not wake up, he would really be thrown out like a corpse by these old fellows. Even if he was not a corpse, he would be treated like a living dead. And so, Jun Daxiao groaned softly and slowly woke up. Opening his lifeless eyes, he weakly looked at the tens of faces above him. His eyes swiveled around, looking at the surroundings, revealing a trace of confusion and pain. Where am I? Didn't I die? Needless to say, the expression on Jun Daxiao's face at this moment could definitely compete for an Oscar. The confusion on his face, the fear in his eyes, and the indescribable feeling of unfamiliarity were all so vivid and perfect. He believed that even a person who had been through such an experience wouldn't show such a realistic expression as Jun Moxie's. At this moment, Jun Daxiao could definitely be recorded in the history of performing arts and become a textbook video for all art schools. His acting skills were extremely standard. This is the Misty Mansion. Brat, are you feeling much better now? An old man came over and chuckled. Where is the Misty Mansion? Is this the Netherworld? Jun Dashao shrank back in fear and widened his eyes. May I ask if you're Lord Horseface of Oxhead and Horseface? Aye. I didn't do anything bad in the world of the living. I'm wronged. Lord Horseface. The old man's face instantly darkened, and his long horse-like face immediately became conflicted. The few old men next to him were about to laugh out loud, but fortunately, they reacted quickly and covered their mouths. This old man's nickname back then was Horse-Faced Heavenly King. It was precisely because he had a long horse-like face that he got his name. At this moment, hearing this little fellow say this, the few old men laughed so hard that their intestines were almost tied up. You said you're not Horseface? How can you not be Horseface? Could it be that you're Oxhead? Jun Moxie looked at him with extreme bewilderment. But Oxhead doesn't seem to look like you. He revealed an expression of deep thought. At the very least, Oxhead should have horns, right? Pfft. Ha! The few old men around finally couldn't hold it in anymore and hugged their stomachs as they laughed. Their entire bodies trembled, and their beards trembled. The horse-faced Heavenly King's horse-like face turned the color of a pig's liver. He exclaimed in exasperation, I'm not Horseface, nor am I Oxhead. You bastard, I'm a human. I'm sorry. Jun Moxie hurriedly apologized. Then, he turned around and said innocently, Hichem, human? You said you're human? Although you look somewhat like a human, how can there be humans in the Netherworld? Are you an infernal judge? I've heard that he's the most like a human, but where are the Book of Life and Death and the Judgment Pen? The horse-faced old man collapsed on the spot. His eyes widened, and he couldn't say a word. Children's words carry no harm, and the wind will eat it. A deafening laughter rang out. It had been nearly 2,000 years since they'd seen this old fellow suffer a setback. Who would have thought that they'd be able to broaden their horizons today? This new kid was simply too amusing, especially his fearful and innocent expression. Yet he spoke such words that made people spit out rice. It truly caused everyone present to be unable to refrain from laughing, even if they wanted to. Just like that, Jun Moxie's first day in the Misty Mansion was a resounding success. Everyone knew that a muddle-headed kid had entered and had actually treated the Misty Mansion as the Netherworld. Furthermore, the horse-faced Heavenly King had actually become Oxhead, Horseface, and an infernal judge. This matter caused everyone to discuss enthusiastically for a long time, and it also caused the usually peaceful Misty Mansion to become a little more noisy. On the third day after Jun Moxie arrived at the Misty Mansion, he finally recovered his health. This caused Chao Guofeng and the rest to be greatly gratified. The effects of the 7-colored holy fruit were indeed extraordinary. The physique of a free and natural physique person was similarly different from that of a normal person. The main reason for this was that Jun Dashao really couldn't lie down anymore. Otherwise, with his injuries, it would be more normal for him to lie down for another 10 days or so. Jun Moxie even felt that his buttocks were about to develop sores. Also, in these 3 days, he couldn't get a single moment of peace even if he lied down and pretended to be injured. Almost every day, there would be people coming to visit this legendary free and natural physique person. After sending away one batch after another, there was an old man whose teeth were about to fall off who was especially wretched. After carefully inspecting Jun Moxie's physique, he unsurprisingly clicked his tongue in amazement. This was already a common occurrence. But this old fellow actually undid Jun Moxie's blanket and took a look at his lower body. After that, he was given a huge fright and said, as expected of the free and natural physique, what a big one, it's really impressive. Jun Moxie almost wanted to kick that wretched old face. F***CK, even if it was the free and natural physique examination. It shouldn't be that area, right? That was the crux of a person's privacy. Did he still have any morals? Right now, Jun Dashao was in the courtyard, sitting on a rocking chair, leisurely basking in the sun. This courtyard was Chao Guofeng's private property. Ever since he came here, Jun Moxie hadn't gone out at all. The main reason was that he had just arrived, and the free and natural physique was so eye-catching. Thus, he naturally didn't dare to move around recklessly. Of course, the main reason was that Holy Emperor Chao was simply too concerned about this successor of his. Every night, he would come over to inspect the room 5 to 6 times, as though he was taking care of a baby. This attitude didn't seem like he was taking a disciple. Instead, it was like he was inviting an ancestor back home. Every day, he would take care of him as though it was only right and proper, as though he was happy to do so. If Jun Da Xiao ran away in the middle of the night, and Holy Emperor Chao found out that his precious baby was gone, wouldn't he be so anxious that he'd have a heart attack? There were also Bai Qi Feng and the other 6 holy emperors who had returned with him. These few days, there were also frequent visitors here. Every day, they would stay until late at night before leaving reluctantly, returning early the next morning. The intentions of the Holy Emperor Chao Guofeng and the other seniors were naturally good. Such a good lad. How uncomfortable, how lonely thus they naturally had to accompany him. This wasn't 3 times, but 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. What they didn't know was that their meticulous care had already caused this free and natural physique person to be on the verge of collapsing, lightly breathing in the air. Jun Moxie felt that this misty mansion was not too different from the Xian continent in the outside world. Chao Guofeng was currently sitting beside Jun Moxie, looking at his precious disciple with a gratified expression. Although they hadn't gone through any formal ceremony yet, Chao Guofeng felt that it was better to dispense with all the unnecessary formalities. How could he run away when he was here? This was the Misty Mansion. Who would be so shameless as to come and snatch him away? Even the palace lord couldn't snatch him away, so others naturally shouldn't even think about it. This is the legendary misty, illusory manor? Why is it so different from what I imagined? Jun Moxie seemed to be chatting idly. The Misty Mansion is an independent space. Although it's in a different space from the Xian continent, there's still no difference between the 2 spaces. Chao Guofeng happily introduced. As long as he was talking to this precious disciple of his, he would feel very happy, and there was an indescribable feeling of bliss. That year, after Senior Nine Nether First Young Master returned from his travels, he used his vast powers to open up this space. Senior had originally intended to use this place to go to other places. Chao Guofeng's face was filled with respect. Ever since the name Nine Nether First Young Master had appeared, this was the first time Jun Moxie had seen such a respectful expression on someone's face. Chao Guofeng continued. But later on, he discovered that this space that he opened up could only connect to the Xian continent space, and could not connect to any other space. This was not in line with his original intentions, and in the end, it was left unused. It was only used as a secret space to store some of his personal belongings. The treasure of this mansion, the 7-colored holy fruit, is a mystical fruit that he personally planted back then. Jun Moxie made a sound of acknowledgement and pouted inwardly. This fellow, the Nine Nether First Young Master, must have gone to Earth once and coveted the stored treasures there, so he came back to tinker with one. As for that 7-colored holy fruit, it was very likely that he had prepared it for his wives. After all, those wives of his had all left with him in the end. Even if a few of them were extremely strong, it was impossible for all of them to be like that. They would need a special treasure like the 7-colored holy fruit, which had a mild effect and had shocking effects. It had to be so. It seemed like the only accident was that this fellow's attempt to draw a tiger did not come to fruition, and he ended up creating a huge space that didn't look like anything. Then, he kept increasing his spiritual power to maintain it. When he reached a certain level, he actually opened up the primal chaos here and reopened the earth, fire, water, wind, yin-yang, the 5 elements, and the sun, moon, and stars to form a world. Originally, it was said that the first-generation ancestor of the Misty Mansion was the disciple of the Nine Nether First Young Master. So it turned out that the legend was wrong, and that ancestor was actually him. Chapter 9:15. But from Chao Guofeng's narration, the Nine Nether First Young Master seemed to be crazy enough. Apart from opening up a private space, he even wanted to use it as a starting point to create a spatial passageway that connected to other spaces. How extravagant! Jun Moxie was really in awe of that fellow from 10,000 years ago. In short, there's no difference between this place and the original Xian continent. The Misty Mansion can be said to be a whole new world. Perhaps it's a little smaller than the Xian continent, but it's definitely not much smaller. Chao Guofeng smiled and said, "So, the Misty Mansion that people call it doesn't feel like a big place, just a mansion. Actually, it's a big mistake. Our Misty Mansion. How can a mere 3 holy lands compare to it?" Chao Guofeng's words were a little arrogant, but to Jun Moxie, it sounded natural. The Misty Mansion controlled a huge world by itself. Could the 3 holy lands do it? It's been hard on me these past few days. I want to go out for a walk. Can I? Jun Moxie requested. No problem. Chao Guofeng readily agreed. But you haven't fully recovered yet, so don't go too far. I'll send 2 people to follow you. Go out and walk for a while. Don't let your body get too tired. Remember to come back early. Got it. Jun Moxie agreed casually, but in his heart, he was thinking, I wonder if there are any specific territorial divisions of countries or something. Going out to take a look, stroll around, just treat it as a vacation. By the way, there's one thing you must remember. It's best not to go to the main palace of the Misty Mansion for the time being. Chao Guofeng instructed solemnly. It's the place that you walked out of after recovering from your injuries. That place is the foundation of my Misty Mansion. There are countless rare treasures inside, all of which are the rich inheritance left behind by the 9 Nether First Young Master. But there are also countless dangers accompanying it. He warned solemnly, if you find anyone trying to get close to that place or trying to destroy it, no matter who they are, kill them without mercy. Even if you are this old man's disciple, or someone with the free and natural physique, the Guardian will not show any mercy. You're new here and you don't know the rules. If you cause any trouble, no one can save you. Oh, the main palace of the Misty Mansion is the place that produces that fruit, right? Jun Moxie asked innocently. That fruit tastes terrible. It's not even as good as an apple. It only smells nice, but it makes you want to vomit when you eat it. Who would want something like that? Stinking brat. What nonsense are you spouting? Chao Guofeng jumped in fright. That fruit is the most precious treasure of our mansion. Who knows how many people dream of eating it? You actually dare to say that it tastes bad. I've lived here for 800 years, but I've never eaten it before. Don't be discontented. You don't know how lucky you are. Holy Emperor Chao paused and then said, but the fruit tree is not in the palace. Didn't you grow up in the mountains? How can there be a fruit tree in the palace? But there's always a back garden in the palace. This is common sense. Jun Moxie said, what common sense? What do you know? That's just a garden. How can you grow a magical fruit? Who has ever seen a towering tree planted in a palace? Chao Guofeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Oh, so the tree is actually quite big. Jun Moxie continued. Of course, that tree is already 10,000 years old. How can it be small? Even if it's a ginseng, after 10,000 years, it should have grown into a human form. Not to mention the rainbow holy tree that was already thousands of years old when it was transplanted here. Then, 10,000 years old, when the fruit ripens and falls, it will turn into a new one. Since it has been 10,000 years, it should have developed into an orchard by now, right? Why can't you eat it with your high status? This doesn't make sense. Jun Moxie said in a roundabout way. Do you think it's an apple or a hawthorn? If it's easy to grow, it would have grown into a forest. But until now, only 2 of them have been successfully cultivated. Even so, they can barely survive. Whether they can bear fruit or not is still unknown. As for the one that bears fruit, it's still the original one. Moreover, it only grows once every 500 years, and every time, it only bears 14 fruits. In other words, if we count 7 fruits as one, it only bears 2 fruits every 500 years. Half of the 500 years accumulation has been used on you, and you're still talking nonsense here. Chao Guofeng said angrily. So little? How can it be so little? Jun Moxie exclaimed in shock. This time, it's not an act. Only 2 fruits every 500 years. Isn't the efficiency a little too low? Grand deity Zhen Yuan's ginseng fruit can bear 30 fruits every time. Not to mention the Queen Mother's Saturn peach, too. How is that enough? Seems like there's only one group left now. How many treasures do you think there are? Chao Guofeng said angrily. Furthermore, for the past 2,000 years, we still have to provide one group for the 3 holy lands. To provide for all-seeing eyes, Qiao Ying in the war for seizing the heavens. This means that only one fruit can be produced every 500 years. In these few thousand years, we've only accumulated 3 to 4 groups. You've eaten one group the moment you came. What else do you want? Jun Moxie looked at Chao Guofeng with his mouth agape. Black lines appeared on his forehead. If that's the case, then what's the use of me coming here? Even if I plunder everything, it's only 3 groups, it's not enough at all. Furthermore, I still have to face the endless pursuit of the Misty Mansion. If Chao Guofeng knew what he was thinking, he would definitely fly into a rage and immediately expel the disciple that he had just treated like a treasure under his wing. Do you think this is a big pot of rice? And you still want to split it evenly? Go and relax. From today onwards, you'll be staying in this Misty Mansion. Under normal circumstances, if your cultivation is not at Shun Xian's level, you won't be allowed to go out for training. Even if you go out, you'll have to try your best to hide your identity. And Chao Guofeng smiled and said, actually, there's not much difference between this place and the Xian continent. There's also the existence of the pugilistic world. This is something you have to know. It's just that under the strong suppression of the Misty Mansion, no one dares to act rashly. So it's like that. Jun Moxie was very curious. How many people are there in the Misty Mansion? I haven't done a detailed count, but there should be a few million people. Chao Guofeng said. All right, when you go out, you must remember one thing. There are a few people that you cannot provoke. At least not until you're strong enough. Can't be provoked. Jun Mo Xie's eyebrows twitched unconsciously. Who is the other party? Do they have a strong force behind them? Even this old man's disciple cannot be provoked. Naturally, they have a strong force behind them. The one at the top is a young man who wears black all day. His surname is Zhan, and his name is Zhan Yushu. This person is the direct descendant of the Grand Elder of the Misty Mansion, Zhan Tianya. Speaking of which, Elder Zhan can be said to be highly respected in the Misty Mansion. His Xian skills are even more outstanding and have long surpassed the level of the ordinary Holy Emperor. But this old man has a bad habit. He's extremely protective of his own people, and he especially dotes on this grandson of his. So, in the Misty Mansion, very few people dare to provoke this Zhan Yushu. Even if they can, they won't cause so much trouble for this little thing, because it's not worth it. Chao Guofeng sighed lightly. Actually, it's not just Zhan Yushu. The people of the Misty Illusory Manor do not dare to offend anyone from the Zhan family. This is also why the Zhan family has become one of the few great families in the Misty Illusory Manor apart from the main palace. Other than the fact that Elder Zhan is protective of his own people, he's a very good senior. Jun Moxie nodded and said, Zhan Yushu, young man dressed in black. I'll remember it. Chao Guofeng smiled happily, thinking that his beloved disciple had already remembered his instructions and would definitely not go and provoke that Zhan Yushu. But how would he know that ever since Jun Moxie heard that there were only a few 7-colored holy fruits, his rage had already risen from his heart, and he was filled with rage. In addition, he was extremely dejected. If he didn't take the opportunity to vent a little, how could he vent the frustration in his heart? Don't provoke? F***CK. This daddy even dares to provoke the entire Misty Mansion. In the process of doing so, what does a mere Zhan Yushu count for? You said there were only a few people just now. There should be others, right? Jun Moxie asked curiously. His expression was very cautious and humble, as if he wanted to remember this firmly and resolutely not provoke this person. And in truth, his plan was to definitely remember that if he could provoke them, he would naturally go and provoke them. Even if he couldn't provoke them, he would create an opportunity and resolutely go and provoke them. Just turn the world upside down and then directly rush out. There is indeed one more person. This person is also a young man, and he's slightly more low profile than Zhang Yushu, so he is ranked second. But this person is much more ruthless than Zhang Yushu. Although he doesn't strike easily, but once he does, he is exceptionally ruthless, easily taking the lives of others. And this person is lustful, so you have to be even more wary of this person, especially when it comes to women. If possible, try not to get into conflict with him. Young men are hot-blooded and are most prone to problems in this area. But you have to know that your goal is to stand at the pinnacle of the world, and not some pretty wives and concubines. Chao Guofeng said in a strange tone, as if annoyed by this. You have the legendary free and natural physique. Everyone in the Misty Mansion already knows this. The outside world is definitely paying a lot of attention to you. All of us old fellows know of your potential, but those young men of the younger generation are all prodigies in the past. They will definitely not accept it when you suddenly surpass them. And because of your talent, I believe there will be many young ladies who are interested in you. Chao Guofeng's expression when he said this was as if he was looking at his handsome son who would definitely not have a problem finding a wife. He was filled with pride and contentment. You can choose, or you can choose not. You have to know that these few days, because you have just recovered from your injuries, we have turned away many visitors. Otherwise, those who want to find you as a son-in-law would already be queuing outside for a long time. Chapter 9:16. This is too unbelievable. There are actually quite a number of people sending their daughters to the door for selection. This is obviously the treatment of an emperor. Even an emperor might not have such treatment. At least when an emperor is injured, no one would send something like the rainbow fruit to him. Why? You find it strange? Chao Guofeng smiled. This treatment is surprising. Not only that, as long as you can display a cultivation level that matches your talent, the Palace Lord will personally host the 100 Flower Gathering for you when you are of a similar age. 100 Flowers Association? Jun Mo Xie asked in a daze. He didn't know what this 100 Flower Gathering was. 100 Flower Gathering is where the Palace Lord will select from the entire Misty Mansion for you, Chao Guofeng said. All the young ladies of the Misty Mansion will be selected from the most outstanding ones, a total of 100. You will be allowed to choose your life partner from them. According to the rules, you can choose a total of 7, which is also known as having 3 wives and 4 concubines. Of course, if you want to choose a few more, that's fine too. You can even accept all of them. There's such a good thing. Zhu Moxie was really shocked this time. Gather all the most outstanding beauties in the entire mansion, and let me choose freely? Heaven, earth, oh my God, all the gods and Buddhas in the sky. This news is too shocking. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have to be able to achieve that. If you can't reach that standard selection, you can't even choose the northwest wind. Chao Guofeng looked at him with interest, observing his expression. Kid, do you think that standard is easy to reach? Let me tell you, in the entire Misty Mansion, there have only been 2 people who have enjoyed this treatment since ancient times. Only 2 in 10,000 years. Jun Moxie was a little surprised, but he calmed down immediately. The treatment was too high, so the requirements must be higher than a certain level. 2, that's a lot. Both of them also had the legendary, miraculous physiques. Although they weren't comparable to your free and natural physique, one of them had the Xian Void physique, while the other had the Clear Spirit physique. The former had fought with the 9 Nether 7th Young Master alone 7,000 years ago and perished together. The latter fought with the 9 Nether 9th Young Master 5,000 years ago, and both sides suffered heavy injuries. In the end, he passed away due to his heavy injuries. Chao Guofeng's eyes shone as he looked at Jun Mo Xie. Just think about how terrifying the 9 Nether 14th Young Master is now, and it's clear what level of experts these 2 are at, right? Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. In this world, there had actually been such a valiant person. How amazing was 9 serenities and 14 masters? With only 10% or 20% of his strength, he was able to resist the joint attack of more than 20 holy emperor. Moreover, he had killed many people in the battle before leaving with serious injuries. Now that he had recovered his full strength, he was truly the number one in the world. Since the 9 nether 7th young master and the 9 nether 9th young master could come here from the 9 nethers, then even if they couldn't be compared to the 9 nether 1st young master, they definitely wouldn't be too far off from the current 14. To think that there was actually someone in the misty, illusory manner who was able to fight alone and perish together with his opponent. One could imagine how powerful he was. Chao Guofeng looked at him meaningfully. Just now, I mentioned that the Xian Void physique and the Clear Spirit physique are also 1 in 10,000 miraculous physiques. But compared to your free and natural physique, they are still far from it. Cultivating Xian skills, the most important thing is talent, and the second is comprehension, Chao Guofeng said. Just having perseverance and courage is not enough. Hard work was barely acceptable for those below the spirit profound level. But if you want to rush to a higher level and become a peak existence, it's impossible. That's why the mansion values your free and natural physique so much, Chao Guofeng said sincerely. The Misty Mansion can provide people like you with the best environment, the best resources, and even the best beauties. But the prerequisite is that your achievements must satisfy the Misty Mansion. Work hard, kid. I have high hopes for you. Chao Guofeng laughed. Then, how did the 2 seniors choose during their 100-flower gathering? Jun Moxie asked curiously. The 2 of them are 2 extremes. Chao Guofeng smiled. Among them, the heavenly king of wind and frost, Chung Feng Shuang, chose all 100 beauties, and he still felt that it wasn't enough. All 100 beauties. Still not enough. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. That's too much. Can he take it? Even the emperor only has 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, and at most 72 concubines. It doesn't seem to be 100 people, but this senior still felt that it wasn't enough for 100 people. Wasn't he afraid that that person would die? That I'm not sure. Chao Guofeng's face turned red. After all, to discuss such questions with his own disciple was a little inappropriate. Then, what about the other one? The other one is the frost swordsman, Dugu Piaoling. He was placed in front of 100 beauties, but he didn't choose any of them. He returned to the Misty Mansion to recuperate after he was heavily injured. From start to end, he didn't get close to any women, and he lived alone for the rest of his life. Chao Guofeng's face was filled with respect and sincerity. That is a true martial artist. In his life, he didn't have any friends or relatives. His only companion was his saber. Perseverance is indeed perseverance, but that's too extreme. That kind of life is too boring. In one's life, there will always be one's own pursuits. Without any emotions or desires, it's too boring. Jun Moxie curled his lips. A lifetime of perseverance is also a kind of pursuit. In fact, it's the most persistent pursuit. Chao Guofeng said solemnly. It's because of Senior Dugu's perseverance that he could reach the pinnacle of martial arts. You should learn from him. But that heavenly king of wind and frost had so many wives. Didn't he also reach that stage? And the legendary invincible expert, the 9 nether 1st young master, didn't he also have many wives? Jun Moxie retorted. Chao Guofeng's face darkened. Didn't you want to go out for a stroll? Why? You're not going out anymore. Then accompany this old man here. He was actually a little angry from embarrassment, because this question was really not easy to answer. The 9 nether 1st young master's stories were all legends. It was not known how many wives he had, but the heavenly king of wind and frost really had that many women. This was not a secret in the Misty Mansion. Was he supposed to tell him that the heavenly king of wind and frost practiced the best yin-yang technique and was especially good in bed, and the more wives he had, the more powerful he was? If that was the case, what would happen if this kid made the same request? This was not a joking matter. This kid in front of him had the feelings of youth. Who knew what he would think? That you didn't have dreams of love? If you don't want to say it, then I won't say it. But don't get angry. Oh, that's right. You still haven't told me who the third person is. There's the first and second. So, there must be a third and a fourth. June tactfully changed the subject. There are only 3 people who can't be offended. As for the third person who can't be offended, the third person who can't be offended. Chow Guofeng smiled. The third person is the one who can't be offended. This person is a young lady, the granddaughter of the current manor lord of the Misty Mansion. She's also the youngest granddaughter of the manor lord, the apple of the Misty Mansion's eye. Kid, it's best for you to keep your distance from her, because no matter how you offend her, you have to be prepared to be skinned alive. Even if you have the free and natural physique, there's no exception. So serious? June Moxie stuck out his tongue. Serious? How can the word serious be enough to describe it? Chow Guofeng was afraid that this disciple with the free and natural physique would be too curious and provoke the daughter of the heavenly Saint Palace. Thus, he said earnestly, "Let me tell you another secret. Apart from you, this lass is the only one who had the opportunity to consume the 7-colored holy fruit in the past 1,000 years. Furthermore, she consumed it together with the treasure of the Heaven's Saint Palace, the 9 Revolutions' exquisite lotus. As for the reason why she could consume 2 treasures of the 9 Revolutions' exquisite lotus, it's not entirely because of her special identity, but because her unique physique is the mystic female physique. If I only talk about the mystic female physique, you definitely won't understand. But even if I explain it in detail, there are many secrets and knowledge about the human body that you won't be able to accept. You only need to know that her physique is not much inferior to your free and natural physique. So, this girl is not to be trifled with. Xian female body. Jun Xie's eyes flashed, and an introduction flashed through his mind. It was the Hong Jun Pagoda's record of the Xian female body, and its evaluation. Xian female body, a woman's body, 1 in a million. If a man with Xian cultivation was able to dual cultivate with her, he would be able to achieve 100 times the effect with half the effort. Another note. A virgin's body, an unbroken body, the first awakening of love, wholeheartedly submitting to the man. This is the prerequisite for dual cultivation. If one is missing, not only will it be useless, it will even cause a backlash from the Xian, putting both the man and the woman in danger. A virgin's body, an unbroken body, this condition was something that anyone could understand. As for the first awakening of love, it meant that the man had to be the lass's first love. And it should be like that. As for wholeheartedly submitting to the man, it seemed like the lass had to be willing to risk her life to fall in love with the man. The starting point of this basic requirement for dual cultivation couldn't be said to be low. June Moxie couldn't help but ponder. Dual cultivation? Seems like there's something to be gained. I'll just wait and see first. Even if it's a beauty, it still depends on whether this young master has the appetite. Unless she's very pleasing to the eye, I will definitely not force myself to do it. If the other party is a dinosaur, then I might as well not even consider it. Chapter 9:17. So, while nothing must happen to you, nothing must happen to her as well. Coupled with her special status as the princess of the Misty Mansion, she is naturally more important than a free and natural physique possessor like you. Chow Guofeng harumphed coldly, as if he was displeased that there was someone who could suppress his own disciple, and he had no choice but to admit it. Let's talk about the most crucial point. If you offend her, you can forget about tasting the 7-colored holy fruits in the future. Chow Guofeng warned. Because her father and mother are the caretakers of our Misty Mansion's spiritual herbal gardens. June Moxie was taken aback. I'll definitely offend the previous 2, but I really can't afford to offend this one. Oh, right, you still haven't told me the name of that female ancestor? What does she look like? Only by knowing her rough appearance can I have a clear idea of what's going on. Jun Dashao seized the opportunity to probe the girl's background. Female ancestor? You mischievous lad. You really know how to give people nicknames. but using this name to describe that lass is rather appropriate. Chao Guofeng chuckled and shook his head repeatedly. Didn't you say that no one can afford to offend her? If that's not an ancestor, then what is she? What does she look like? Is she ugly or handsome? I can't possibly avoid a lady every time I see her, right? That would make me look like I'm crazy. Jun Dashao was rather interested to know more about this female ancestor. Spiritual herbal gardens. This name was indeed rather poetic. But the most important thing was that there was a 7-colored holy fruit tree in there, and it seemed like there was more than one tree. That was a heaven-defying treasure. Speaking of which, Jun Dashao was originally a little disappointed, but he suddenly thought of the unique divine ability that he had, the power of the 5 elements, especially the power of wood that he hadn't used for a long time. At that moment, Jun Dashao almost threw his head back and laughed hysterically. If this 7-colored holy fruit was in the hands of others, perhaps it would take 500 years for it to bloom and bear fruit, but in the hands of this young master, as long as there is enough spiritual energy as a foundation, this father can make it bloom and bear fruit 365 times in a month. At that time, even if this 7-colored holy fruit was treated as an ordinary fruit, it wouldn't be a problem for it to be placed on the plates in the living room every day. As the saying goes, there are only things in this world that can't be imagined, but there is absolutely nothing that can't be done. Didn't this prove it again? Therefore, he had to go to the spiritual herb garden. Moreover, the security there would surely be extremely tight. No matter how careful he was, if he offended this female ancestor, it would surely give rise to a lot of trouble out of thin air. Whether it was his previous life or this life, there was a common understanding. As long as it was a woman, it was rare that she wasn't petty. At most, it was just that some women looked a little more attractive. If he offended this female ancestor, it would give rise to a lot of trouble out of thin air. Then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Therefore, if there was a need, as long as that little girl's looks weren't too bad, this young master can consider sacrificing himself and selling his body a little. Although he might suffer a little and be accused of living off a woman, but if he suffered a little, then so be it. Who asked him to be a man? When it's time to be hard, he can be hard. When it's time to be soft, he can also be soft. That girl is called Miao Xiao Miao, and she wears a light yellow robe all year round. Not only is she extremely talented, there's nothing to say about her looks. She can be said to be the #1 beauty of the younger generation in Misty Mansion. It's just that her personality is a little strange, and it's not easy to get close to her. But this is good. It can save a lot of unnecessary trouble. When Chao Guofeng mentioned Miao Xiao Miao, his face was brimming with a loving smile. Obviously, this Miao Xiao Miao was very liked by him. This kind of loving affection didn't seem to be shown to Jun Dashao. Miao Xiao Miao, #1 beauty. Jun Moxie suddenly thought of a possibility. I wonder if this young master can get both wealth and beauty this time? Thinking about it, Jun Dashao, who hadn't been able to vent his what recently, directly turned into a wolf. Saliva almost flowed out of his mouth as he murmured, "Since she's so beautiful, then I'll find a time to do her." That's... Chao Guofeng heard this and immediately became furious. He grabbed his ear and roared, "Boy, if you dare to do something to her, this old man dares to guarantee that in less than 2 hours, you will be done by all the seniors in the misty, illusory manner." Jun Dashao didn't expect that he would say it out unconsciously. Now he was a little miserable. He was pretending to be seriously injured, so it was naturally inconvenient for him to dodge. So he was caught by Chao Guofeng. Of all the places you could have grabbed, why did you have to grab that place? That place seems to be the exclusive area of my mother, Dongfeng Wenxin. While cursing in his heart, hearing Chao Guofeng's fierce words, Jun Dashao felt a chill in his heart. He instantly felt his anus tighten, his rectum twitch, and his whole body was covered with cold sweat. There was no longer any other thoughts. They were all scared away. Suddenly, Chao Guofeng asked thoughtfully, "Boy, how old are you this year?" Jun Dashao said shyly, "I'm 18 this year." It's said that the age of 18 is like a flower. Are you going to hold 100-flower festival for me? Get lost. Holy Emperor Chao was angry and amused at the same time. He directly kicked Jun Dashao's elegant buttocks. Jun Moxie cried out and took the opportunity to rush out. Chao Guofeng looked at his back and muttered, 18 years old. He's actually 1 year younger than that girl. It should be possible, and this old man would be happy to see it happen. But those two fellows have waited for so many years. How could they be willing to give up so easily? Disciple, you can play. Even if you cause trouble, it doesn't matter. Just don't cause that big trouble for me. At that time, I'm afraid even I can't solve it. Jun Dashao immediately felt relaxed as soon as he came out of the small courtyard. He didn't have the supervision of a few old guys, and he was surrounded by a lot of divine senses. He suddenly felt like a dragon returning to the sea and a tiger returning to the mountains. He also felt a sense of freedom and comfort that he hadn't felt for a long time. Jun Moxie almost subconsciously took a step forward and started to hum a Beijing opera that no one could understand. I remember the things that happened in the past. I'm like a bird in a cage. I can't spread my wings. I'm like a tiger that has left the mountain. I'm like a lonely tiger that has left the mountain. I'm like a wild goose from the south. I'm like a flock of birds that have lost their flock. He walked out of the door while humming. He put his hands behind his back and shook his head. He had the demeanor of the number one debauchee of Tianxiang in the past. Two middle-aged men were following him from behind. They were expressionless, and they followed him step by step. These two men were Chao Guofeng's disciples in name. They were responsible for protecting Jun Moxie at this time. And here, young Master Jun naturally had to change his name to Mo Junyi. Mo Junyi. Mo Junxia. There was also a homonym meaning the devil monarch. It could be seen that this evil monarch's evil nature hadn't changed. They walked slowly along the road and walked out of the slightly remote path. The scene in front of them became more and more prosperous. There were restaurants everywhere, and the sounds of people bustling with activity came with the wind. Occasionally, there was the sound of hawking. The bustling scene was not inferior to Tianxiang City or Chrysanthemum City. There's a city in front, and it's a market? Jun Moxie turned around and asked the two guards. The two looked at him and replied expressionlessly, "We have 7 cities in the misty mansion. They are the Psychedelic City, Magic City, Purple City, Golden City, Blood City, Sky City, and Heart City. This place, including the place we just came out from, belongs to the core area of the Misty Mansion, Heart City. It's not the same as the common people. A few miles ahead is the place where the common people live. All the necessities of the main palace of the Misty Mansion are purchased here." Jun Moxie made a sound. The other person said, "Young master, you come from outside the Misty Mansion, so you may not know much about the customs of the mansion. Although the people of the main palace are above the common people, they don't know that the common people are like ants. The young masters and ladies of the various families in the Misty Mansion also play here, and most of them are gathered here. It's probably because this is the most prosperous area of the Misty Mansion." The meaning behind his words seemed to be pointing at something, reminding and warning him. He must have been instructed by Chao Guofeng not to let this young master cause any trouble. "I understand. Thank you for the information, big brother." Jun Moxie smiled and asked, "Oh yes, I heard Elder Chao mention the Spirit Herb Garden of the Misty Mansion. Which city is this mysterious garden in?" The man with a cold face said, "The Spirit Herb Garden. It's best that you don't ask about it." He paused, as if he felt that his words were a little harsh, and said, "The Spirit Herb Garden is not in any city. In fact, the garden is not even in the space of our Misty Mansion." Jun Mo Xia stared blankly. Damn, what kind of explanation is this? Not in the Misty Mansion? Could it be in the Xian continent? Then why did I come here? For a stroll? Sightseeing? Not in the Misty Mansion? Could it be in the outside world? Could it be somewhere in the Xian continent? Jun Moxie clenched his fist and asked. Naturally, it's still in the area of the Misty Mansion, but not in this space. The guard stared at him for a while before replying carefully. It's in a Misty Mansion, but not in this space. What do you mean? June Moxie thought for a while and said, "Could it be that in this misty mansion, there's another unique space, and one of them is used to store the spirit herbs? And the name of that space is the Spirit Herb Garden?" That's about it. Young Master is indeed intelligent, as expected of a prodigy with a free and natural physique. The two of them praised lightly, but from June Moxie's ears, there wasn't the slightest hint of praise in their tone. "Looks like these two fellows are a little dissatisfied with me." June Dashao snorted twice in his heart. "It seems like I've snatched their positions the moment I arrived, and they're naturally dissatisfied. But they can keep it in their hearts if they're dissatisfied. Now that I've seen through it, aren't they just looking for trouble? If Elder Chow knows about this, he'll definitely not let them have a good time." Chapter 9:18. There was no other reason. The moment he entered this place, June Moxie felt as if he had returned to Tianxiang City. He almost wanted to go around looking for Fatty Tang's aristocratic hall. There was really no difference between this place and the outside world. The two guards behind him looked at each other and saw the disdain in each other's eyes. Free and natural physique? Puffed. He was definitely a country bumpkin who had just entered the city for the first time. He had never seen the world before. For the free and natural physique to fall into this kind of person's hands, the heavens must be blind, casting pearls before swine, to look at a vegetable seller for such a long time. Damn, don't tell me you haven't even seen a vegetable seller before? This was the main street of Heart Fantasy City. There were a few stalls on both sides of the road. Some were selling handicrafts, some were carvings of birds and beasts, some were selling fresh vegetables, some were selling food, and some were selling toys. The shops on both sides were even more dazzling, with everything that one could think of. Countless wine stalls fluttered in the wind along the street. It was a spectacular sight. The smell of cosmetics wafted over from afar. Occasionally, a woman's coquettish laughter could be heard, and he had reached a brothel. Everywhere, there were well-dressed people walking in, and there were also many people walking out with weak legs. Their faces were full of satisfaction and reminiscence. The flow of customers in the hotel was endless, and the fragrance of wine filled the entire street. "It's very flourishing," Junimo Xie exclaimed in admiration. This place seemed to be even more flourishing than Tianxiang City. He threw a copper coin and took a stick of candied haws. June Moxie ate as he walked, until his mouth was full of sugar-coated foam. He didn't even bother to wipe it. "So sweet, so delicious, really delicious. Give me another stick." The two guards behind him looked at each other. They felt that it was really embarrassing to follow behind this fellow. Thinking about how this country bumpkin was able to gain the favor of the entire Misty Mansion the moment he arrived, and was even treated like an ancestor by Chao Guofeng, the two of them felt bitter in their hearts. "Oh heaven, oh earth, oh all the gods and Buddhas, please open your eyes. Hurry up and strike this fellow with lightning. I really can't stand it." Just at this moment, a group of people suddenly appeared in front of them. Their faces were fierce and ferocious, and they rushed over like crabs from the east, west, north, and south. Each of them had a white wax stick in their hands, and their hats were askew, and their lapels were slanted. Each of them had an ominous glint in their eyes. "The city's administrator is here. Everyone run," someone shouted first, and the street full of vendors scattered like birds and beasts. "City manager?" June Moxie stared at the people in front of him. F***, this place was actually so advanced. There's already a city. Tube. As soon as he stopped, a guy looked at him from the corner of his eyes. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen me before? If you look again, I'll gouge out your eyeballs. You blind little bastard." June Moxie staggered. This group of people was too intrepid. They didn't even know who he was, and yet they dared to provoke him. How would he know that his current image was more euphemistic if it was a country bumpkin entering the city? It would be a standard second son who didn't look like a crown prince, even if he wore a royal robe. However, a few fellows at the side had already begun to drive people away with sticks. One of them even kicked a peddler who couldn't escape in time to the ground and smashed the peddler's head with a stick. As he beat the peddler fiercely, he cursed and grabbed the money bag from the peddler's arms. His hands and feet were unusually agile as he stuffed the money bag into his arms. Then he continued to smash the vendor with his stick, and as he hit him, he scolded, F***CK your grandpa. You've been setting up a stall for an entire day, and you only earned this little money. Don't you feel ashamed? You still have the face to come out and set up a stall. Why don't you go and die? The vendor hugged his head, curled up on the ground, and screamed and begged for mercy. Not long after, he was covered in blood. That prostitute screamed in fear and smiled coquettishly as if she was going to hit him. Instead, the man leaned forward and actually hugged her in broad daylight and began to tease her unscrupulously. The other few men looked at this scene with jealousy and walked into the shops on both sides of the road with faces full of displeasure. They yelled and shouted and stepped on the dining table as if they were demons. Collect protection fees. Hurry up. Damn it. You don't want to work anymore? What the F***CK are you dilly-dallying for? Do you believe that I will make your shop close down tomorrow? Be quick. Next, the shop owner came over with a face full of smiles and bowed with all his might. He first handed over a considerable amount of shining white silver and then secretly stuffed something into the pockets of the few men. The few men touched their pockets, and their anger turned to joy. They whistled and walked out of the shop and continued to plunder. Who the hell are these people? Why are they so domineering? Jun Moxie looked at this incomparably familiar scene and was dumbfounded. His legs were cramping a little, and he suddenly felt as if he had transmigrated again. Before the two guards could answer, the fierce-looking man not far in front of Jun Moxie was already in a bad mood and walked over while swinging his arms. What? Brat, you still want to know who I am? As he spoke, he grabbed a passerby and kicked him to the ground. Then he stepped on that unlucky fellow's chest with his shiny leather shoes and said with his nose in the air, Tell this brat who I am. That passerby walked carefully on the road and almost walked sideways for fear of bumping into them. He did not expect an unexpected disaster to fall from the sky and immediately screamed, and tears and snot flowed down his face. He said repeatedly, Sir is the manager of Heart Fantasy City. Sir is the righteous lord of us commoners. That man snorted in satisfaction and lifted his leg to let the passerby go. The passerby ran away quickly and did not even dare to look back. The man looked at Jun Moxie from the corner of his eyes and said, Did you hear that? Brat, come over here obediently, kowtow to me, and admit your mistake. Then use your pink tongue to lick my leather shoes clean, and I will let you go. Otherwise, you're a spy. If you wait for me, I will teach you a lesson. I'm a spy. Jun Moxie almost laughed out loud. How did you know? This city manager is really perceptive to be able to tell that I am a spy with one look. Impressive, impressive. So many experts above the Holy Emperor, and Holy Emperor did not notice. That's right, I am a spy. What can you do? You are not a spy. The man laughed wildly, and the black hair on his chest shook. Even if you're not a spy, if I say you're a spy, then you're a spy. So what? Look at me so angrily. Be careful that I will kill you on the spot. Even if I really kill you, you will have died for nothing. Understand what kind of people you are. Jun Moxie's eyes gradually turned cold. To think that there would be such people in every world. This was really an eye-opener. The so-called Misty Mansion, a peaceful place, was nothing more than this. The two guards at the back smiled lightly and watched from the side, watching how this country bumpkin was going to resolve this matter. They were very clear that although this country bumpkin had shocking talent and the free and natural physique, he had not cultivated any profound Xian skills and might not be able to deal with the trouble in front of him. As long as he could not settle it himself, there was no need to worry that he would not seek help from the two brothers. However, what happened next caused the two of them to be filled with regret. The two of you, come over and kill this scum for me. Jun Dashao ordered arrogantly. With free labor by his side, why would Jun Moxie take the risk of exposing his identity and personally take action? Hurry up, or else I will tell my master that I was bullied outside, and you two are watching me make a fool of myself. Do you think my master will believe me, or you two? If I am really injured or something, how do you think my master will take care of the two of you? The two of them looked at each other, not expecting this seemingly innocent kid to have such a trick up his sleeves. If he really went back to complain tearfully, regardless of whether it was true or not, the two of them would definitely be in deep trouble. One had to know that this kid was not only tearfully complaining to Chao Guofeng, there were still the other 6 holy emperors. Which one of them did not see this kid as their precious treasure? If, then the future of the two of them would really be finished. What's more, if he accidentally scratched the skin, those few senior holy emperors would probably tear the two of them apart. That was definitely not something that was too rare. The two of them were also supreme level experts. Based on their cultivation base, they were not below solitary eagle back then. They naturally had a deep understanding of their own. At this moment, they were filled with anger, but they could not vent it on Jun Moxie, so they vented it on this bunch of city's administrators. A slap landed on the face of the big man opposite them. The guy's feet left the ground, and he spun around 3 feet above the ground like a spinning top for a long time. The teeth on half of his face were like bits of broken jade, spinning and spitting out like a machine gun. The other person leaped up with a tongue sound and shouted in midair, "You bunch of blind bastards! All of you gather over here. If you don't come over in 10 breaths' time, you don't need to come over ever again." Reality had proven that the demeanor of a supreme level expert was very intimidating no matter where it was. When these cities' administrators saw them, they immediately became quiet out of fear, and even their legs turned to jelly. They did not expect that they would actually provoke such a big shot when they were just out for routine enforcement. 10 breaths time? In less than 5 breaths time, 7 to 8 people walked over obediently and quickly stood in a row. The 2 guards did not say a word and started to beat them up. As he beat them up, he felt aggrieved in his heart. I'm a great supreme expert, although I'm not considered a big shot in the misty illusory manner, and I'm not a super expert, but beating up a normal person like this is the first time in my life. It was too suffocating. However, although the two of them were heavy-handed, they knew in their hearts that they could teach these people a lesson, but they must not kill them. After all, the cleanliness of the city depended on these people. Moreover, this was one of the basic components of the Misty Mansion. However, after the two of them stopped, they were dumbfounded. The 8 people on the ground were moaning and groaning at first, but now they were all bleeding from their orifices, their eyes were bulging out, and they were not breathing at all. They were all dead. Not a single one was alive. What was going on? Although they had used a lot of strength just now, they did not use their own Qian-Qi at all. At best, they only had the strength of a normal person, so how could they have killed people? Please rest assured, my condition is recovering. Moreover, I feel better and better. I have completely recovered. I will have a good sleep, and then we will continue to fight. To be honest, I have not slept well for 5 days and 5 nights. The plot ideas are fighting in my head every day. This feeling is terrible. Chapter 919. Just at this moment, a cry of shock rang out from the crowd. Someone's dead. Someone's dead. It was unknown whether this voice was filled with fear, excitement, or gloating. In any case, with this cry, everyone dispersed in an instant. The shop owners and workers on both sides of the street were all pale as they hurriedly closed their shops and closed their doors. It was a complete mess, killing a city's administrator. How big of a matter was this? Whoever wanted to be implicated in this could just show their heads. The sound of hooves could be heard as a few young men rode over from the other side of the street with their attendants. The one in the lead suddenly smiled faintly as he looked at the scene before him. With great interest, he said, "Ah, isn't this the 2 great envoys of Holy Emperor Chao? Why, you're so excited today. Actually interested in killing a few cities' administrators for fun. With the cultivation of a supreme martial artist? Haha. Killing the city's administrators of the secular world to your heart's content. How mighty and impressive, ah!" The faces of the 2 guards darkened instantly. When they turned to look at Jun Moxie again, they realized that this lad had already disappeared without them noticing. Only now did they remember that the voice that shouted "murder" earlier seemed to be this lad's voice. I was wondering why he was shouting so excitedly. So, it's young Master Jean. We brothers greet you here. Although the other party was young, his background was extremely powerful. The two guards knew that they couldn't afford to offend him, so they naturally didn't dare to be the least bit rash. Coincidentally, this handsome and tall young master in front of them was the person that Holy Emperor Chao Guofeng had reminded Jun Daxiao time and time again. The first person in the Misty Mansion that they couldn't afford to offend. The Zhan family, Zhan Yushu, not to mention Zhan Yushu himself. Even the other few young masters behind eldest young Master Zhan were all descendants of the great families in the Misty Mansion. Regardless of which one of them, these two brothers couldn't afford to offend them. Although Chao Guofeng himself and the powers around him weren't afraid, they wouldn't get into any conflict with these families for no reason. Everyone had a tacit understanding to maintain the harmony on the surface. For example, Chao Guofeng would naturally stand up for young Master Jun if he were to go against the young masters of these aristocratic families. In fact, it wouldn't be uncommon for them to fight. But if the two brothers were to provoke these young masters, Chao Guofeng would definitely not stand up for them. In fact, he would even punish them severely. In fact, he might even expel them from the family and cripple their martial arts. However, this was a matter of life and death. Wang Neng, Li Jie, I heard that you two have a new young master now. Zhan Yushu raised his chin and narrowed his eyes, looking down at these two people with a condescending gaze, as if he was looking at ants. I heard it's some free and natural physique. I heard that. He's very powerful. Is that so? He said the word heard 3 times in a row, but he purposely dragged out his breath each time, revealing his contempt and disdain. The few youths behind him couldn't help but burst into laughter, rocking back and forth with the intention of livening things up. One of them said, "What free and natural physique? He's just a country bumpkin at most. Who knows where he was picked up from? This kind of trash is just a pile of shit compared to our big brother Jean." Another person said, "Calling him a pile of sh*t is already praising him too much. This young master has read a lot of books, and although I dare not say that I know everything from astronomy to geography, I have never heard of any strange physique called the free and natural physique in this world. Who knows where this scoundrel has crawled out from, trying to suppress us with a nameless thing? He must be blind to think of something like that." With big brother Jean around, which young man in the Misty Mansion dares to say that he's number one in the Misty Mansion? A frog at the bottom of a well who overestimates his own capabilities, an arrogant man from the filthy world. Zhan Yushu smiled reservedly. His fair and handsome face was filled with a smug look. But if one looked closely, they would be able to see that in the depths of his eyes, there was a hint of calmness and awe. He was observing the faces of the two people in front of him, not letting go of any clues. From the corner of his eyes, he was also observing the group of people behind him. If Jun Moxie was here, he would definitely be able to tell that this legendary young master of the Zhan family was definitely not an idiot. But it was a pity that he had already slipped off to God knows where. Young Master Zhan is right. Wang Ning's face turned slightly green. Lord Holy Emperor Chao had indeed taken in a disciple with the free and natural physique previously. We're here to accompany young Master Mo to Heart Fantasy City to widen your horizons. Zhan Yushu took in Wang Ning's expression very carefully. He narrowed his eyes and smiled. In that case, didn't the two of you wait bitterly for 80 years go to waste? What a pity, what a pity, what a pity. Although he was saying it was a pity, his tone was filled with schadenfreude. The moment he said this, Wang Ning's and Li Jie's faces changed instantly. But Zhan Yushu still did not shut his mouth. Using an extremely arrogant voice, he said, "Haha, thinking of how the two of you have been fighting openly and covertly all these years just to fight for the position of Holy Emperor Chao's direct disciple, you could be said to have racked your brains. Now that I think of it, this young master is simply unable to contain his laughter. It's too funny. Ha! Decades of hard work, and now it's all paid off. The two of you must be feeling very good in your hearts, right?" Li Jie's expression changed again, but he still did not dare to say anything. He smiled bitterly and said, "Young Master Jean must be joking. If not for the fact that the two of us had received the careful guidance of Holy Emperor Chao, how could we have such insignificant achievements today? Holy Emperor Chao's greatest wish in his life was to find a suitable successor. Now that he has finally found the most ideal successor, the two of us are extremely happy for him. We are filled with joy and did not have any improper thoughts. Young Master Mo has the free and natural physique and can be said to be a heaven-sent talent. Such an extraordinary physique has only been possessed by the founder of Xian Skills, the Nine-Nether First Young Master. It can be said to be unrivaled in the world, and few people have been able to reach it since time immemorial. Even if we have any thoughts, we are completely convinced. Young Master Zhan's last words are very true. The two of us feel very good in our hearts. Zhan Yushu chuckled coldly. Although the other party's words were polite and humble, and he had lowered his stance, the meaning behind his words was something else. Moreover, it was after a few of his friends had commented on his aptitude. Clearly, it was a counterattack, mocking that his aptitude was inferior to the successor, and that no matter how much he flattered him, no matter how hard he tried, it was useless. The truth was as such. Arguing forcefully was just making himself look bad. Hearing Li Jie's words, Zhan Yushu's face darkened. You still want to argue? Two pieces of trash that were casually thrown away by others. Trash that could only be substitutes after following for decades. The moment they came out, they used their supreme martial artist strength to bully ordinary people and killed the manager of Heart Fantasy City. And they dared to mock this young master? Zhan Yushu's expression was cold. Men, arrest the two of them and hand them over to the public health office to await punishment. As soon as he gave the order, several guards behind him immediately rushed forward while rubbing their fists and palms. Zhan Yushu's eyes were as cold as a jackal's as he looked at Wang Neng and Li Jie disdainfully. These two people had no respect for the laws of the misty, illusory manner, challenging the enforcers and using all sorts of methods to kill 8 innocent enforcers on the streets. Blood flowed all over the streets. Their methods were cruel and vicious, and their hearts were indescribably vicious. All of us saw it with our own eyes, and we can be witnesses. The evidence of their crimes is conclusive. We are law-abiding citizens, and with a heart of justice, we are assisting the Misty Mansion's law enforcers to detain them. If these two criminals before us show any signs of resistance, we will kill them without mercy. Anyone who kills them will be rewarded with merit. Wang Neng and Li Jie took a step back at the same time, their faces ashen. Young Master Zhan, we are all from the same lineage and belong to the same Misty Mansion. You don't have to be so merciless in your actions, right? Zhan Yushu snorted. Pooey, just the two of you scums, and you want to be related to this young master? Not to mention that you can't be related to this young master. Even if you can, so what? The two of you are lawless, perverse, and cruel people who killed people on the streets. And the people you killed were the law enforcers of the Misty Mansion. This young master is enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens, punishing family in the name of justice. Looking at the 5 to 6 superior supreme martial artists behind Zhan Yushu walking forward with sinister smiles, Wang Neng and Li Jie's faces turned pale. In their hearts, they were already cursing Jun Moxie. Young Master Zhan, the cause of this matter was because these ignorant fellows provoked our young master. The two of us only made a move because we were following orders, but we had our own difficulties. Young Master Zhan, everyone has their own plans in their hearts. Since lives have been lost, why don't we wait for the relevant people to come forward and settle it? Why must we overstep our boundaries and stand up for others? Besides, it's just the deaths of 8 city officials. It's not a big deal. Why do you have to make a big deal out of this and make everyone lose face? Your young master? That country bumpkin with the surname Mo? That person with the free and natural physique? He's here too? Zhan Yushu's eyes darted around, instantly shifting his attention to the whereabouts of Jun Daxiao. Wang Neng hurriedly agreed, cursing in his heart. We clearly said that we're here to accompany him for sightseeing, and now you're acting like you don't know anything. Tell the steward of the city's law office that this young master will temporarily take responsibility for this matter. Ask them not to pursue it for now. Zhang Yushu paused for a moment, a sharp glint in his eyes. Bring the two of them to Drifting Fragrance Lodge first. Spread the word. Ask that young master Mo Junyi to personally come to Drifting Fragrance Lodge to collect them before midnight tonight. If he doesn't arrive by then, hand these two people over to the public health office and deal with them according to the law. A life for a life. Do not let them go unpunished. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.